Like we were doing the last configuration, and I hit import, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, that's not gonna work. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is gonna end badly. I'm like, I have 30 minutes. 15 minutes go by. I'm like, that thing's still processing. That means it's dead somewhere. So I pulled up my console log, and it's 404 404 404 404. I'm like, yep. I'm like, yep, that would be kind of what I was expecting. It's such a good bottle. And I love the call out that's on that bottle. Yeah, because it's Halo 4. She lost an arm. So great. Mm-hmm. Oh, the 16. Oh, the big ones? No. Because I got the Hunter from the Loot Crate one. And oh, that thing is so nice. Oh, is green muted? Oh, yep. It's not picking up your audio for some reason. God bless it. No, that's me. I probably toggled something real quick here. Say something. Yep,
Say
there it goes.
something.
All right. Yeah, I must have accidentally hit
Hi,
the
Siva.
toggle off of.
He is okay. I'm gonna go look at faces on the Twitchers.
You are very soft, though.
That's because I'm not facing the mic as much.
Now you're not soft anymore. Now you're very loud. Take that how you will. Moving on.
Wow. Jay, did you see Blue posted the finished product of her Xbox One?
Mm-hmm. I saw
That
it on
looks nice.
Instagram the other day. She did a a video feed of it. She was like, "This is what this is, and this is what this is." I'm like, "What are you gonna paint with that?" And then she was like, "This is my Xbox." I was like, "Oh my god, I need it."
I've seen plenty of the on Twitter the mock-ups of like if you had a custom skin
Oh yeah,
for the
with
Xbox One. Some of them look
who
so
was
nice.
it? Is that oh god, it's like Pope, Xbox Pope or something.
Mhm.
Who does the he did? Did you see that he actually got a gig with the creative lab at Microsoft? So he's actually designing some controllers.
Oh, nice.
So they actually teamed up with him on the controllers. He
Like
did
layout
a
or the
no,
just
so
the
like
artistry?
yeah, so like he's got some just fucking insane designs. Let me see if I can find some of. He just did a PS5 Destiny theme. He took the PS. He takes what he does is he takes the consoles and then he like mocks up what it could look like if it was a specific design for like a limited edition release, and like some of them are
Okay.
just. He's extremely good at it.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember. Like
Lots
I've
of
talked I've
people.
talked to him a couple times over on Twitter. Yeah, like he just did a Batman PS5, which is ridiculous.
The Superman Xbox is pretty nice. That one was about 4 hours ago.
Yeah, so he just oh yeah, the Batman one was about 10 hours ago. So he just did the Assassin's Creed Valhalla PS5 and let's see, let me grab this for you. But anyways, he got like a while back. He basically said he was saying something about he got a deal with Microsoft because Microsoft started doing some like you can do custom. I think it's called Creative Labs, but you basically can customize your own controllers. Well, they actually partnered with him and did like I think like two or three controllers that he did, and it was just I mean they were really well done. I'm trying to see it. I don't know. I don't remember if it. Oh, the Superman one. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's like the top one in his feed.
So he did.
The Batman
Where
one
is
is really cool
the
too.
I like
That definitely is pretty nice.
the design of it. But he also, but like what he does is that's really cool is he does like the console, but then he also takes one of the controllers and does like a custom skin for that controller too that matches with the console. And like sometimes it's just like a smaller repeat of it, like the Extra Life one he did it just like repeat. But then like with the Batman one, it's like a copy of it, but it's specific to that controller. And it's just like he's just always got like a really good eye for that one. I'm trying to see if I can find the Destiny one that he did for the PS5. It's a lot of Batman on his feed right now. What's that one? Oh yeah, he did a Star Wars Squadron Xbox too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Skyrim. He did the Dovahkiin. But like Microsoft has actually talked to him, like they actually talked to him quite a bit about different designs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just really cool.
Assassin's Creed is pretty. Sorry.
If you keep scrolling down,
I-
he has a D-pad. It's got a wine glass, a salt shaker for the different emotes you can do.
Oh.
Oh shit.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a little while back, so I'm not sure how far he's pretty active. So, but yeah, he did a PS5, and he's over on Instagram too, and he'll do like videos that'll show like some of the design stuff.
I got Julie into Pokemon Go again.
I saw that. Did she catch any shinies yet?
I have. I don't know if she has yet. I don't understand why that's so much cooler because you can't trade them for candy or anything else, and they're not that much powerful. They're just different looking.
Did you use the cheat code to get Pikachu?
I already had a Pikachu from 2016.
There's something like when you first sign in or something, there's a specific like you walk a certain like pattern, and you get Ash's Pikachu. So I think it's got the cap on it.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
Like, I was reading something. I was like, but it's like you can only do it when you first log in.
Well, that's kind of shitty.
You mean like log in for the very first time?
I think so. I would have to look it up. It's been a while since because I was looking at it. I was thinking about getting it to play with the Minion, but then it was like then he got into Minecraft. And I'm like, whatever. Of course, now they have Minecraft World. I'm like, nope, this is too dangerous.
You know they're thinking about doing Pokemon Sleep instead of Pokemon Go. They're doing a sleeping one. That's in the I mean, testing.
I would fail at that game, but
well,
look, I was waiting. I'm like, where's this gonna go? Come on.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the article I read on it.
I just remember back when it first launched, like all the people were losing their shit because people kept doing stupid stuff and walking into things, or like the idiot who drove off a bridge because he was playing Pokemon Go. I was like,
Darwin.
Yeah, I'm like, there's a part of me that's just.
Yeah, it's a sleep tracking app.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So is that like how you train them or whatever?
No.
Or is it more like a Pokemon version of just a health type app to make sure you're sleeping enough?
Yeah, like one of those idle trackers or whatever.
It's not a game. It's being touted as just an app. So more of like the second one. And what Pins was saying aims to turn sleeping into an entertainment by having players' time spent sleeping and the time they wake up affect the gameplay. So I don't know.
Well, considering I can barely get 4 hours of sleep most nights.
Oh yeah. That's what he said. That's not gonna work. Because I know with what was it? It was like gold or silver back when they first introduced the concept of night and Day. I remember that coming out, and I was like, I remember looking at it, and I'm like, nope, this is getting too complicated. Like, that was way back in the Game Boy. I was like, man, I just want a stupid RPG. I just want to,
The thing is that you can do that in Pokemon Go too. Like if you're near a Pokestop at night, you're gonna have dark Pokemon or whatever. They've updated it.
A Pokemon MOBA.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting concept.
I have a perfect Hitmonchan though. Like it has the best stats you can have on it. It's like
you would be very proud of me. I upgraded my armor 3 times in Destiny.
Oh.
I don't know.
Did you change the pieces at all, or is it just upgraded?
No, it's changed. I found pieces that were over 60. I was like, Green will be mad at me if I break this, so I put it on. That's how I evaluate things. It's like, would Green
step in the right direction.
Would Green yell at me if I did this? Yes. Okay, we're not going to do that. Especially since she made me take notes about it when she talked to me.
I didn't make you take notes. I just highly suggested it.
Right, that's what I said.
Good.
Mm-hmm. That was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Did you see Wicked's conversation on Twitter? If you don't, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Wicked, what happens if I just load in and play with whatever the fuck is equipped because I don't care? Then just do that. I'm like, you don't tell me what to do, Wicked.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was like, I'm going to kill you.
I kind of just want to be like, this is what I deal with every time. All the time.
Though I did do, I got in last night to get the lore card because this week's been absolutely insane. And I had to run solo elimination. I did actually pretty decent. We won every single game.
Well, the solo queues actually aren't bad because when I was doing Lunas and also when I was looking for Redrix, I was going into the solo queue, and that wasn't bad. Not really. I actually had tons of fun in there.
For the elimination round or the elimination?
Mm-hmm. Well, survival was it? Yeah, elimination or was it survival?
I don't think I've
done survival. Yeah, it was actually for Lunas. It was survival. So because that required the comp side.
Ironically, comp has been less sweaty than sixes. Iron Banner has been fucking terrible.
Yeah, I got all the stuff from Iron Banner last season, and I turned on Tuesday, turned on the internet, looked at the response, and I was like, yep, nope, I gotta do that. Going back to Minecraft, where there's no pressure to do anything.
Yeah.
Except for the fucking zombies that keep spawning in my camp for some reason.
I still need to... Well, there may be a spawning point in that area.
I have literally gotten to a point where there are torches every 3 blocks because I'm like, I don't know where the fuck you're coming from, but I'm going to find it, and I'm going to... Then apparently
he's going to use his particular set of skills.
Yeah, I don't have a problem being the OCD part. You look at the camp and it's like, how is nothing not burned down at this point? No, there's apparently a new mob that they introduced since the last time I played, which was forever ago, called a phantom. It's a flying thing and it's a pain in the ass, but it only comes out if you haven't slept for 3 days. I was like, I feel targeted about this whole thing.
Should we start the recording, Jay?
Oh yeah, we can.
Are you done? What do you got that you're shut?
I'm not done eating. Yeah, it's French fries. It's literally the only thing I've eaten all day.
Oh gosh. We had a Caesar salad with pork tenderloin.
Nice. Yeah, I made apple butter pork loin Wednesday. And then I used the extra apple butter to make overnight oats.
Nice.
It was delicious.
I've got a recipe for chicken with tarragon cream sauce that I've been really, really wanting to try.
Tarragon cream sauce. That sounds awesome.
I just, yeah.
I'm good to start recording whenever, by the way.
Yep.
You'll just have munching sounds on it.
Nom 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 nom. Like 3 hours worth.
Nom 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 nom. Gosh, man. Speaking of which, that lo-fi beats that they put out.
Uh-huh.
I listened to that on repeat for about 2 or 3 hours.
All right. Audacity ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
3, 2, 1, click. I'm actually really looking forward to doing the episode on how we put the podcast together. I was telling Julie about it earlier.
Yeah, I have so many like things that I do behind the scenes that I don't even think about. Mm-hmm. Like I was thinking about that while I was editing Titan episode. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I do this. And that's how I do this. That's how I do that. I'm like, oh shit. Like I didn't realize how that. You don't realize half the stuff you do until you like have to sit down and be like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. It's kind of how I feel like when I'm starting to take notes on how I would teach Audacity to people. Mm-hmm. And there's so many hotkey things that I naturally do now that I don't even think about. The other thing that I would have to teach.
The other thing with Audacity is you can program in your own hotkeys, and you can also set up what's called chains, which are super useful.
I don't know how to do either of those.
So chains,
I know you can. I just haven't done it.
Mm-hmm. Chains are where you can it's basically a string of commands, but you only hit one hotkey and it does all of them. I don't do them a lot because with the length of files that I have that I'm editing, whenever I do a chain, it's like this is going to take 5 hours. I'm like, if I just do it by itself, I can just do it in like 30 minutes. But
let me tell you how many times I have started a playback and then tried to import an audio file into the program. It does not like it at all.
I remember that tweet. You're like, it's dead.
I killed the fucking program. I have done so much shit in that program, but that's the one thing it doesn't let me do. You cannot import audio while listening to audio. It does not like it.
So there was
it doesn't.
Did I send you the trick that one of the guys did? I don't think it was in Audacity. I think it was like Adobe Premiere. But he was showing how it was a sound effect guy, and he was showing how they made a distressed. It was something that he was. Yeah, it was like a fight or something like that they were trying to do. But he took the sound file, and he's like, so I totally didn't understand that you could do that. And like the Twitter, like the sound effect Twitter thread just was like everyone being like their minds were blowing up. But he took the sound effect while it was recording and clicked on it and dragged it. and he's like, oh, it's recording while playing back. And then he started inverting it while he was dragging it around. And he's like, and then he can't ended up with like this just amazing audio file, but it was the funniest thing watching him like. He's like, I didn't know that was possible.
I like it. I like finding new tricks there. It's literally the only thing that I did in school that I use today is Audacity.
I can do that. Well, I mean, it's super useful too. Like it really is actually.
It's actually really simple too. I mean,
it is.
I'll admit, I was long before I got into anything. I was always looking for music on YouTube. Yep. So I actually used Audacity to record music off of YouTube.
I've never actually done that. I've always just pulled it to one of those websites that'll rip it for you.
Yeah.
And turn it into an MP4 or whatever. But the only thing I used it for in college is they made us write a piece of music, like a techno piece. And we had to have it like performable and everything by the end of the semester. It's like, okay. Done? Is that done, Hands?
Yeah, I have a quarter pounder, but I'll figure that out later. It's my standard meal. I messaged Christine. I'm like, I need McDonald's. She's usual. Yes. I like the fact that I've gotten to a point where I don't even have to order it anymore.
I mean, Julie knows my Chipotle order really well.
No, that's why I use the app. You just go reorder what I ordered last time, and it pays
They
for
have
itself.
cauliflower rice now. They
do. I think. No, what was it that we had that was cauliflower? Oh, so Minsky's is a local pizza place. They do cauliflower crust.
Mm-hmm. We get a cauliflower crust pizzas, frozen pizzas from Costco. They're actually really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's surprising. Like Anna had one, and she was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. She's like, I'm never going back. I was like, all right.
Nice.
All right.
You ready?
Yes. Oh no! It didn't do it. You're supposed to do the nice thing. You broke it, it did. Oh my god, Skype, you fucking thefter. So, Audacity has the Control M for labels, but Skype, the little bastard, is stealing all my hotkeys. So I went to Control M in Audacity, and it was like, "Oh, I'll mute you in Skype," and it didn't put a label up, and I was like,
"Oh no,
what is this bullshit?"
It's Microsoft enhancing your experience.
So I had to fully explain that to Green. She messaged me. She's like, "What are you guys talking about?" I'm like, "Well, that's a long-standing inside joke." That was from back like years ago.
And it's appropriate still today.
Yeah, I was just very confused because I had gone looking for the enhanced button because it's like, sure, I don't know Skype. I'm going to go look for this thing. It's probably going to be great. There's no fucking enhance your experience button.
No, that's just the Microsoft experience is what that is.
God.
But yeah, I was like, I was explaining to her, I was like, it's because without fail, every recording, it was like something would happen and Skype would be like, we're going to upgrade you. And it wasn't like a, hey, would you like to upgrade? It was a literal, you have 5 minutes before we kick you off. It was like, oh, God, what are you doing?
Well, and I mean, like Podtacular uses Skype all the time, and they ran into it. There was a stretch of time there they had nothing but recording issues. Mm-hmm. And I'll admit that I can't remember where that came up, but it was just one of those things that it started turning into an inside joke. I mean, most of the guys in my office, we use that joke too about Microsoft patching, and it kind of rolled over for Skype because Microsoft bought Skype, and then Skype went to hell. So, yeah.
Skype is just, it's hit or miss. And I think, honestly, it's because it's such an old program and it had such a bad thing for a while. Mm-hmm. I don't know how bad it actually is now. I've only used it for one podcast.
It's light years ahead of where it was. Like, I mean, I'll give them that. Like, it went through a rough patch when they first purchased it, but to be fair, I also don't know if that was because they just purchased it or if it was about to go belly up and they just happened to grab it right as it did.
Well, the other thing is that Skype's actually getting phased out for Teams in 365, at least from the corporate side. So
Teams is fucking amazing. I love Teams.
You want to talk about setting all kinds of backgrounds? You can do that in Teams.
Oh, so we had a corporate happy hour because that was what like they wanted to do that but we had to do it digitally. So it was like bring your own alcohol. and it's with the tech team. So everyone loads up, and every person has like just like these insane backgrounds. And our manager was like, "So I wasn't expecting that." I was like, "You gave us a toy, and you expected us not to play with it."
Were you just like, what were you guys using? Just
Teams.
random stuff?
It's just Teams. Teams has like 50 default. Like, I mean, it's a ridiculous library of just like basic, like same type of stuff that Skype does, but actually I think it does a little bit better on Teams.
Yeah, I mean, when it works exceedingly well. It's chat, individual conversations. Like I said, it has a lot more customization for backgrounds and things like that too. So
it also integrates all the apps of Microsoft really well.
Yeah,
for the most part.
But whenever Microsoft's 365 decides not to work, guess what?
That's a well, we're not working today.
Pretty much.
Bungie Ling Ling? What's Ling Ling?
That's a panda.
So I subbed to Bungie, and so I have all the emotes, and I've never seen this one before, and it is terrifying.
Oh yeah, that's shit. That's what, Marathon?
I
think
no
so.
idea.
That's way back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
Here's some fun ones. I'm just spamming chat now. Sorry, guys. There's a sweeper bot.
Oh, okay, yeah. Ling Ling, so it's Bungie Studios' dog. Only, it's not so much a dog, but a dog's head, contained in a jar of formaldehyde. The dog's head was once lost, but has now been found, and is kept somewhere inside Bungie's office. And we wonder why Bungie and Microsoft didn't get along sometimes. Recovering Ling Ling's head is step 5 in the 7-step plan for world domination, and it is currently listed as completed. I love Green's face.
That is the most disturbing. Like, I've been to Ripley's Believe It or Not, and that is fucking disturbing. Yeah, face desk. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I don't know.
Ling Ling's head can be seen in a Bungie Vidoc. There's a picture of Ling Ling in the tribute room in Halo Reach.
Oh, wait a minute. I remember that one.
And also, apparently in Halo 2, there's a point in Uprising, the level, where you can sometimes see his face in the clouds. Oh, they have an exclusive interview with Ling Ling. We're gonna watch this.
No.
It is bright yellow. All right, so here's the interview. Here's the introduction. In 1994, a young white poodle's head was severed and stolen from an upwardly mobile Asian couple in the southeastern United States. Named Ling Ling, the poodle was a cherished pet that meant so much to the couple that they went on an all-out campaign to try and locate the dog's head. They traveled the United States and abroad, putting up posters to inform people of the tragedy. The couple continued in their diligent efforts despite some in the media who have accused them of being frauds. They have also been accused of using the unfortunate events surrounding their pet's death to draw fame and attention to themselves. In an unexpected turn of events, we recently received a personal phone call from Ling Ling itself. In this exclusive telephone interview, many details of this baffling case now come to light. Somewhat shy and careful about its choice of words, the dog seemed basically open, candid, and alert. I win!
That's a wrap, guys. We're having yep.
So, Veru, the 7-step plans for world domination from Bungie, with the aid of the 7th column, which is their underground army. Step 1 is start an independent gaming software company. Completed. Step 2, dominate the Mac platform, launch assault on Windows platform. Step 3, announce killer gaming title. Step 4, acquire strangely addictive Chinese food company. Step 5, recover Ling Ling's head. Step 6, stage bloody coup of new parent company. Step 7, take over world, shoot enemies into sun with giant slingshot. All of them are completed except for Step 7.
There was heavy drug use in Bungie at some point in time.
Oh, really? What was the first clue?
Would
that be the Step 4 or Step 5? At which point that kind of...
Or the fact that they're just in Seattle.
Well, they were originally. They were in
Chicago. They were from Chicago.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
They didn't move to Washington until Microsoft bought them. Mm-hmm. Or yeah, I guess it would. Yeah, because
that's where
Bungie
Deej got
burned all their money fixing Myst 2. If I remember correctly.
Yes. Because I think that's where Deej got hooked up with them too.
Right. Well, Myst 2, like if you would install it at the root of C and you uninstalled it, it would wipe the drive.
What?
Yeah.
It was the Fallout 76 before Fallout 76. The only difference is it didn't delete itself.
To be fair, they realized that not everyone would do that because you actually had to change the installation path at the time of install, which hardly anyone ever really does. But they decided that they were going to go ahead and fix it. So they had to recall. This was back when everything was packaged and boxed and sent. So they had to recall everything, repackage everything, and ship it back out again.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord.
All on their own dime.
Does anyone have any of those? Like, is that kind of like a collector's item now? Is finding one of the original ones that went out?
There's probably still some out there.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised. Usually if someone puts out a call back, everyone's like,
Thank goodness.
One more bite.
Should probably get started. Oh.
Yeah. He's finishing.
There was an ulterior motive, okay?
That's fine. That's fine.
Do you have coffee pins?
I'm good right now. I've drank a couple of cups of green tea. So
nice.
Because if I make coffee right now, Aaron's going to beat the living snot out of me. So, yeah.
All right.
Which I'm sure a number of people would love to see, but no.
I mean,
she hits harder than I do, so yeah.
Has the kava worked at all?
It's helped a little bit, I think. It's kind of hard. I haven't seen anything appreciable with it, but the tea actually is pretty soothing.
Good.
I mean, I'll admit I opened it up and this hit of spearmint hit my nose. I'm like, oh, no. But it actually wasn't too bad. So
yeah. So on the tour for that, because at Celestial Seasonings, you'll go through this area that has all the different ingredients except for mints, because mint apparently will infuse itself into everything. So they have to keep it locked away. And you go into the mint room, which has spearmint and peppermint and stuff in there, and your sinuses just go, I'm bleeding. When
Aaron and I went on a tour of the Jack Daniels factory, when like your distillery went ahead and took us through the room where they actually created the mash before they distilled it.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, well, they opened up like the top of one of the vats and they said, okay, so you can just walk past it and smell it. Or if you're really brave, you can put your head down in there and smell it. There is a reason you don't want to put your head down in there because
knowing what mash is, no thanks.
But I'll tell you, but like 2 stops later, there's like when it was actually after it had been distilled. They have these like huge wooden covers over the vats. And what they do is that they'll come in and they'll essentially burp it. They'll like lift it and kind of let excess air come out. And oh my God, that would smell so awesome.
Oh, really?
Because at that point in time, it had gone through the process and it was just maturing. But oh Lord, did it smell good. Oh.
Okay, Jay.
All right.
Let's.
I'll bring this up.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on August 7th, 2020 over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring the lore in Halo that are leading up to Halo Infinite. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the intro session of the week's exploration. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is the currently trying to figure out something to use as her name because she didn't think about it yet. It's just green. It's just green this week. Let's forget about it.
Hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts.
And last
well,
but
I mean,
definitely...
if you wanted to go the Halo route, I could give you a quote from Johnson if you want.
No.
I mean, I had Carolina as my background. I could do a text thing, or I guess it would not have been text. Who was it? Was it Griff? Protect me, Cone. Protect me, Cone. Green-eyed music lover. There we go.
And last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend Pins Halo. Pins, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that we have
you here.
Yeah, I was about to say,
obligated.
Obviously. Now that we have all that out of the way, I want to actually shift focus back over to Pins. It's because usually with intro sessions, we set aside some time to get to know the guest. Pins has been on for, handful of times.
I think this is 5 or 6.
Yeah, basically every Halo episode we know Pins has been on, and then there's been a few extra on top of that. But give us a quick rundown for those who, I know there is a couple people who jumped into our chat actually earlier today that were like, "Hey, we just found you guys." So give us a quick rundown of like how did you get into game lore, but more specifically Halo?
Well, I've always been one who enjoyed reading and sci-fi, and especially military sci-fi. But really from a game perspective, until the very first one that I started to get into was Star Wars, from X-Wing and TIE Fighter, which kind of led me along with the movies and whatnot. But it actually was Halo. The first time I loaded up Halo CE, and after you escape the Pillar of Autumn and you come out and you open up and you see the skybox, I was amazed. And then I ended up reading Halo: The Fall of Reach by Eric Nyland, and I knew right then and there I was hooked. It reminded me so much of the techno thrillers that I loved from like Clancy and Dale Brown and whatnot. So I was just straight up hooked from there. And yeah. So
I know.
Waiting for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know who's going next on this one because
Green's got a question in all caps.
Okay. Well, it was mostly to catch your eye. When I need somebody to focus on something in chat, I do type it out in all caps. It is a great start to the show. But I know both of you I'm going to toss it to Pins first, but both of you are excited for Halo Infinite. And I want to get your take on what you're most excited to possibly see, what they're going into. Pins, you want to start this off?
I think for me, it's because Halo Infinite is set essentially 3 years in the future from where we left off of Halo 5. I want to see what pretty much what's happened in the universe. You still have, I mean, we know that we're fighting the Banished, but what happened with the Created? What's, there's talk of the Didact coming back. Plus, and we'll probably get into this in the advanced episode, but where Halo Infinite actually takes place, Zeta Halo, Installation 07, that ring is thousands upon thousands of years older than any of the other existing rings, or the rings that are still around. And there's so much potential for a story there, different things we haven't seen before. And I'm really interested and excited to see how 343 progresses the story for that. And but yeah, that's really what I'm looking forward to.
All right. Jay, what about you?
I am excited to get the Brute equipment back because honestly, the Brute's weapons were some of the most ridiculously fun ones out there. With, what was that, Halo 3, I think was when, or Halo 2 was when they were introduced, but Halo 3 was when we got to really like double down with their stuff.
ODST as well.
Yeah, that's true. But man, the Brute weapons, just because of the aesthetic that the Brutes had, whereas just like that heavy, like it always had like a heavy blade. They had grenade launchers, which were just ridiculously fun in PvP. But then they also had like the Pins, you'll know what it is. It's the Brute Ghost. That was just a giant it was a giant blade that you could just run things over with. The chopper. Oh my god. I'm like, the Brutes had just like some really cool aesthetics to it. And they also brought, like, when they were introduced with Halo 2, like that was the entire like kind of catalyst to the whole Arbiter situation, the Brutes, because that was it was at Tartarus who was the big bad at that point. Like, I mean, the whole thing with them kind of set into motion a large component of what eventually, in my opinion, was one of the big things that broke the Covenant. Was like, and I mean, like, there's other things that happened outside, but like the Brutes were the betrayal of them to the elites were kind of like in the game world. It kind of was like that happened, then this happened, and it was just like they were very instrumental in that introduction, I guess, of the Arbiter.
Okay.
And so, like, bringing them back in, even though it's Atriox, and Atriox is such an interesting character, we'll get into his story as well, because Atriox is not, like, the Brutes that we encountered before have been Brutes that were loyal to the Covenant. Atriox is the exact opposite. And one of the things about Atriox is, like, I think Isabel? Was that the AI in Halo Wars 2?
Yep.
She kind of explains it. She does a really good job explaining it, but she made a comment about, like, even at the height of their power, the Covenant weren't able to deal with Atriox. So the fact that we're going up against Atriox via his Warchief, one of his Warchiefs, is really, I mean, like, this is going to be, it's setting it up to be a very interesting story, because I will be very surprised if it gets done in one title.
Okay.
Unless something what this installment of this title, I guess, would be a better way of saying that.
Yeah.
Rather than like a DLC add-on type thing.
Well, because what they have softly alluded to is that this is like, it's Halo Infinite. Everything going forward is just going to be basically kind of like how Destiny has gone, where it's adding on to the existing platform.
Sure.
World of Warcraft, all the
Yeah.
online games. That seems to be a lot of the AAA titles, whether you like it or not. That kind of seems to be the standard practice that a lot of them are moving towards, for like a whole host of reasons, But
Sure.
I can see like Halo Infinite, especially since it's going to be an initial launch title on the Series X. We're going to be with it for a while, like unless they turn something around really quick.
Yeah.
Which I don't expect.
That's not a bad thing though, if you're talking about how people maneuver through titles and whatnot. If you have a classic or a favorite, you're sticking to it most of the time. So I can see why that's a good model that a lot of people are moving towards.
I mean, it's one of the reasons I really like Destiny is it helps like
longevity.
Longevity, but it also it makes the players kind of connect with the interconnectedness of the story. Like it's not in Halo 2 this happened, but in Halo 3 this happened. No, it's this happened during this season, or but that season led to this or whatever. Like that's one of the reasons I love Spartan Ops from Halo 4 was because Spartan Ops took the story of Halo 4 and was like, okay, this is what happened, but then we're not following the Master Chief. We're going to follow a random fire team of your particular, like you were able to customize your Spartan in Spartan Ops, and it was your team doing missions as a Spartan. Like it was an extension of Halo 4's story.
Yeah.
And it's still one of my favorite ways that any of them have done that.
And
okay, so here's
considering that was the first time anyone's ever done that, really. I mean, it's not a DLC. It was an extension, and no one had ever done that before. And it was a little bit rough in the first half of that season, mainly because of the way they reused maps and things of that nature.
Which I didn't even care.
But it really got good in that second half, and I was really disappointed they never had a season 2. My thoughts on that are, but that's kind of what I'm seeing with Infinite is you're going to kind of see this, kind of like an episodic kind of thing where you go down paths and things like that. So.
Well, I think that'll be good, though.
Yeah, and Vuru makes another point, too, is this model also allows them to schedule development properly while the game is live. So it also, from a development standpoint, almost eliminates the need for having crunch. Like, it doesn't eliminate it because you're always going to have crunch, but it's not going to be...
Deadlines.
It's not going to be... the crunch is not going to be so terrible. Like, it's not like...
Right.
Come November, we have to, like, you'll still have deadlines, but it's not like, okay, well, we're going to shift everyone from platform A to platform B. We're seeing that with Bungie, with Beyond Light. I mean, they had to shift Beyond Light from, September to November? Or was it?
Yep.
But they shifted it, and it's like, that doesn't, I mean, yes, everyone was like, oh, like, we wanted to play it, but it doesn't mean that we don't have a game to play between that time. Whereas, like, if you're going to a completely new, like, Call of Duty, where they do the cyclical year thing, if you don't release it on that schedule, you mess up not only the future schedule, but you also leave people, there's other contracts that get impacted by that, too.
Coding-wise, I'm sure that it has developments and stuff that happens within the engines that I'm sure really mess with it, though. So I can imagine that there's going to be challenges either way, whether or not you start with a brand new engine or format within a game title versus an ongoing one. I know you guys are laughing because you're both coders.
No. So the reason I'm laughing is I literally just sent Pins this video a couple days ago where not good news came out about like Halo's base code, and so. The thing is like with games like this, like big games, like it's ridiculous how much code is actually still from the original batch. Like, because it just gets grandfathered in with like the whole system. Like it's because they don't have time, right? Because of crunch and because the demand is so high. But what that can lead to, and this was kind of one of the things that was I don't remember getting confirmation that this was accurate, but the statement was that a lot of the code in Halo was done by contractors. And so these contractors didn't have any skin in the game, if you will. And so they just basically kit bash stuff. Well, the developers then have to go back and they have to figure out, and to be clear, this isn't just Halo. This is, take your pick on AAA games. And that's what chat's doing. They pulled a Bethesda. Yeah, I mean, Bethesda's not unique in that sense. But there's so much code that is grandfathered in from the real, the base. Even though they're going to the Slipspace engine, which is such a big step above, what was it, Unreal 4 was the one that they were. I mean, Slipspace looks ridiculous. It's an amazing system. But even so, they're still going to have old code, because the other thing is to remember is this is a cross-platform, or not cross-platform, but cross-generation game. So the Xbox One is going to be able to play Halo Infinite. It's just not going to be able to play it at, I think it was 120 FPS. That's ridiculous. But sorry.
Real quick, I'm going to cut you guys off. I got one more question for you, and it's probably in some ways the harder one, but is there anything that you're specifically worried about coming up with the game? You have a minute each.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I know my answer, so yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's pretty obvious that you can tell that they're leaning pretty heavily on nostalgia. You can see that in the graphics. You can hear that in the music. Not necessarily gameplay, but things like that. And I don't want them to lean on nostalgia so much, just living off of what Halo 1, 2, and 3 were, or CE 2 and 3. I really enjoyed 4. I had loved the way they took the story. 5 had issues, but it had good ideas there. It just wasn't executed right. I just want to see them continue to innovate and not be scared to innovate. So that's probably it for me.
Yeah, my biggest concern is basically that. My biggest concern is just dealing with the community blowback that I know is going to happen. That's me basically kind of dodging the question, but really honestly, I don't have anything. I've been completely happy with everything that Bungie did with Halo, that 343 has done with Halo. I've loved every single installment of Halo. I've had my gripes about every single installment of Halo, equally different gripes, but equally the number of gripes. But there's a reason I don't get super involved with Halo's community, and I don't see that changing. And it's not so much me worried, it's actually me sad, because Halo's an amazing game, but it's the community can just can get really toxic sometimes about really stupid stuff.
Oh yeah. Trust me, those
black undersuits.
Oh God.
That caused a problem?
Oh yeah, yes.
There was a reason that was specifically called out in the blog. That
Green, I'll be glad to talk to anybody about some of this stuff, because I have a tendency to get really passionate when I start hearing some of this stuff. It drives me up a damn wall. But if we actually want to get to the topic, we should not go down this road.
Well, that's a good spot to stop, so we can do an ad break real quick. And my timer just went off, so we'll be right back with. Actually, I think we're starting with Halo 3, right?
Yeah, we're gonna do just a recap real quick.
Cool. So, be right back, guys. And we're back, and everybody's still giggling a little bit because Pins is slightly triggered and ready to go. But I'm gonna be the mom, and I'm gonna shift your face back towards Halo 3. That's where we're starting, since we're doing kind of a recap on it. So let's start what is it, 2553?
Yeah. So the lead up to Halo Infinite, you start off, the Halo 3 ends in March of 2553 with the destruction of the Flood on the Lesser Ark. But later in 2053, and this kind of leads to what the universe is now, Oni, that wonderful group, instigates a civil war between, they instigate a civil war between some of the remnants of the Covenant. The idea being if they keep them unstable, they won't try to cause a problem with the UNSC.
Sure.
This was specifically with the Sangheli, or the elites. There were two factions. You have Thelvadam, who was the Arbiter, and his Swords of Sanghelios, and then the faction called the Servants of the Abiding Truth. It's an ancient religious order that predated the Sanghelian Shanshayum, or prophets, their war. So they were just two opposing factions, essentially based upon religious lines. The problem is that a Sangheli by the name of Jul Mdama, anyone who played Halo 4 knows who that is, found out that Oni was the one triggering all of this, which ended up causing his wife to get killed. He used this information to form another Covenant faction, essentially to wage war against the UNSC.
So, okay, I'm going to pause real quick. Quick question. So, Jul Mdama is part of the original Covenant that was with Thelvadams? So originally the Sangheli were a race that viewed the technology of the Forerunners as holy to the point where you don't touch it. Okay. This was different than the Shanshayum, or the prophets. They wanted to use the technology. Okay. So, and the Servants of the Abiding Truth, like I said, they didn't believe in tampering with the Forerunner technology, but yeah, Joel Mdama was more along the lines of what the Covenant that the UNSC fought were, that he was willing to use that technology, which you see plenty in Halo 4 and in Spartan Ops, to continue the fight. And honestly, if Oni hadn't stuck its nose in it, we may not have had Halo 4. So, interesting.
Thanks, Oni.
Okay, so so you have the ones who want to use the old tech, the ones that don't want to use the old tech, and then everyone are put on a chessboard, and Oni's like, go play.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, though, that is kind of what Oni does in general, or tries to do in general. But you also forgot the Lagoko, who just wanted to eat everything.
Well, yeah.
The hunters.
The hunters, yeah. Was that a fractured circle? Was that what that one was? With the prophets and the hunter worms eating the ship?
That was actually in...
What book was that?
Contact Harvest.
Contact Harvest, that's right.
Yeah. Contact Harvest. The remnant of Mendicant Bias, a Forerunner AI, discovered... Right. This is when they discovered humanity. This is when the Covenant found out that humanity was supposed to be the inheritors of everything the Forerunners had.
They were completely okay with
Bias
this.
Was going to take
okay with
the Mendicant Bias was going to take the ship that he was on to find the humans. Well, the Covenant decided no and sent the Lagoko, which will eat technology, in to disable the ship. And that's as short as I can make that story.
Okay. So the Lagoko are
the hunter worms. So like hunters, the big hunters, those are not actual single entities. Those are entire colonies.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
But that's why
they come in pairs.
Yeah, that's why they also come in pairs. Right. But also, if you ever are playing Halo and you punch them in the back, when you see the cords that are in that's actually the worms.
The worms
moving.
That's gross. That's
Well,
gross.
there's a scene in Halo 5 where you can see the worms forming
Yeah.
the hunter.
Oh, it's so cool.
That is pretty neat. And we won't go into how the Scarab is actually a massive Lagogo colony, but we won't go there.
Can we jump to
Yes. 2554.
Requiem?
Yes. Okay.
Point number 2, by the way, guys. We're doing so well.
This is how every Halo episode is gone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know.
Okay, so continuing on with Julum Dama, like I said, he was searching for ways to become stronger, move forward in using Forerunner technology. Well, they come across the Forerunner Shield World Requiem. They then spend the next 3 years trying to find a way to get into it. Again, this ended up being a Forerunner world where they were hoping to get a lot of technology from to assist them in their fight. Moving on.
They don't break into that until Halo 3.
Nope. July 21st, 2557 is the date they actually get in.
We're going to get there. I'm just jumping ahead. Sorry.
No, not a problem.
2555?
Yeah. So in 2555, at the end of in Halo 3, a portal was opened above Voi in Kenya that allowed the UNSC to travel through to get to the Ark where the final battle was fought. Well, that portal was left open. It ended up that the AI that was in charge of the Ark sent sentinels through the portal to collect resources to restore the Ark back to its glory. A combined UNSC and Swords of Sanghelios team. Fun note, if you ever played co-op in Halo 3, the two you played as 2 Spartans and 2 elites. The 2 elites that were in Halo 3 were the ones that went through the portal along with the Spartans at Voi. So they actually tied the two together.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So they go through and they're able to get the issue resolved. Also in 2555, the location of Installation 07, otherwise known as Zeta Halo, is discovered. And it is also in this point in time that Oni learns of the origins of a Ural Hane that has been that the Covenant is hunting by the name of Atriox.
Okay, you're gonna have to. I'm assimilating so much information.
Yeah.
Atriox. What race is that?
A brute. The proper name is Ural Hane.
Okay.
The UNSC calls them brutes.
Okay.
Because, well, yeah.
Because
they look like King Kong.
Humanizing.
Well, yeah. It was just slang because they didn't know what the proper name was. And, well, anyone who's fought them in Halo will know that you get to a point that you pop their armor and they go into berserker rage.
Okay.
Yep.
Funniest and best animation ever.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do a playthrough with you guys and just let you guys laugh at me the whole time because I'm going to be that person who just pops it and then runs.
Why do you think
I've been
love
having
watching...
fun laughing at Mylan?
That's what I was just about to say. Why do you think I comment on every Mylan clip that he's posted? The hammer clip when he realized he's like,
I still think the ghost one is my favorite. Where he steals the ghost finally and gets across the map, and then another ghost just shoots him as he gets there, and just a look of despair on his face. Just don't celebrate too early.
Nope, never do. Okay. So 2556. It's at this point in time that the Forward Unto Dawn was a Chiron class frigate. That was the frigate that actually took Chief and the Arbiter to the Ark, and it was the one where he got stranded, ended up being stranded in the middle of unknown space when the portal collapsed. Mm-hmm. It was found that the Cortana, which Chief was in cryo sleep, Cortana files a report on the history of Forerunners and humans, and it's at this point in time that she starts to exhibit clear signs of rampancy. This is actually comes directly from the short Halo Origins 2, which is in Halo Legends. It's a bunch of short clips animated. Actually, they're all from anime studios that put together some small stories that 343 had put together. It's actually really well done.
Nice.
Okay. So, moving on. July 21st, Halo 4.
Yay.
July 21st, 2557, my 586th birthday. Cortana awakes John from cryosleep. She does this because they have drifted close to the Shield World Requiem and has detected all the fleet of Jewel Madonna that are there. A battle ensues. They board the Forerunner Dawn to try to prevent it to destroy it or at least salvage it. It ends up that Chief fights them off, and it ends up that the Shield World recognizes a reclaimer human and scans and then decides to suck everybody into its core. So this brings the Forerunner to Dawn. The Forerunner fleet essentially opens it up. I'm sorry, not the Forerunner, the Covenant fleet. It opens it up, allowing them to enter. It ends up that the UNSC Infinity, which at that point in time was the newest ship, and the UNSC fleet was out looking for Forerunner relics, stations, and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And through a number of broken radio messages, they determined they're trying to warn the UNSC about, don't get caught under the gravity well. Well, to do this, John and Cortana go through a bunch of things to try to disable this. They get to the core of the Shield World, and they've determined that's what's causing the interference. They go to shut it down. They shut it down, and it ends up they release the Didact from his cryptum. The Didact was a Forerunner general who was who was captured by the Flood and rendered pretty much insane. And he was interred in a cryptum, which is, think of it as a secure vault where he was supposed to sleep and hopefully heal, which he didn't.
I like that. Which he's still cray-cray.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff, this particularly all comes from the Forerunner trilogy written by Greg Bear. It's really, really good. Although if you're not used to the way Greg Bear writes, it can be hard to get through. But anyway, the Didact takes control of both the Prometheans and the Covenant forces that were in Requiem. Despite everything John and Cortana John and Cortana recognize he's a major threat. However, the current captain of the UNSC Infinity, Andrew Del Rio, didn't see it that way. He wants to retreat back to Earth. Cortana and John, with help from Lasky, who was the second in command, eventually becomes commander of the Infinity, leave and try to stop him.
So it's just the three of them essentially trying to stop him, or just
Lasky stays. So he gives them a fully equipped Pelican dropship, and the two of them go off. Sorry. It ends up they can't stop him. They're able to hop on a Covenant ship that's leaving, and they end up pursuing the Didact to Ivanov Station, which is where the Halo Ring Installation 03 is. The Didact recovers a Forerunner device called the Composer. The Composer is a device made by the Forerunners that was initially to try to protect them from being infected by the Flood. But what it does is it takes biological material and turns it digital. So, but while this initially didn't work in trying to do the restore, what it does do is it allows to take a biological creature, digitize him, and put him into an armored shell, meaning the Prometheans that we fight were actually biological creatures at some point in time.
And do they automatically assume control over them at that point, do they lose that? One of the things that I was curious of is you mentioned that the Didact took control essentially of that group, right? Like he became the general of that group. Is he physically taking control over them, kind of not necessarily via orc style, but more like the Vex, where it's just not necessarily a hive mind, but kind of assimilated into one?
Probably the best way that I can describe it is because the original Prometheans were the Didact's Forerunner troops that volunteered to be digitized so they wouldn't be infected by the flood, so they could fight the flood.
Sure.
So they're not automatons. They are actually basic AI. And he doesn't, it's not like a hive mind like the Vex at all. Each one essentially has, I don't want to say fully its own will, but it's semi-autonomous on its own.
Okay. Gotcha.
So the Didact gets hold of the composer and composes everyone on Ivanov Station minus John. Thanks to some hocus pocus that the librarian, another Forerunner, who I know we spoke on the last Halo episode I was on briefly, essentially, and going into that is just going down the rabbit hole. So I'll just say she did some hocus pocus, which allowed him to be immune to being composed. They travel to Earth, and John and Cortana are actually able to stop the Didact. Throughout Halo 4, Cortana's rampancy is getting worse. Rampancy is nothing more than smart AI who are created from a human brain, have a lifespan of 7 years. After 7 years, they start to think themselves to death. They kind of run out of space to do their processing, so in essence, they just start to break down. And you see this throughout Halo 4. The way Cortana is actually, when they get to the point where before they're able to fight the Didact, he's in a shield. To break the shield, Cortana splits off her rampant sections, a total of 12 of them, into the system to break the shield. So once the shield's broken, he fights the Didact. He's able to defeat the Didact by shoving a pulse grenade into his chest. The Didact falls into a slip space portal, a slip space event that was below the composer at the time. Before he's able to detonate a Havoc nuclear bomb, because at this point in time, the Didact was actually composing the entire city of New Phoenix. So
I remember some of this from Halo 4. It was that, if I remember right, that was the mission where everyone essentially cried because Cortana just kind of somewhat.
Yeah, she died. That just thinking of that mission, the mission's name was Midnight, and that final cutscene always hits me dead in the feels every time. So John detonates the Havoc nuclear bomb. The main fragment of Cortana, the one that stayed with him, was able to save John by putting him in a hard light bubble. She then dies, and John is recovered by teams from the UNSC Infinity. Going into 2558, this is where we started getting into Halo 4 Spartan Ops that Jay and I spoke about briefly. Essentially, the UNSC Infinity returns for a second tour of Requiem. Spartan 4 teams are sent to dispatched to combat Julum Donna's Promethean Covenant forces. They recover a Forerunner artifact that ends up being a trap that anchors the UNSC Infinity in place. Oni ends up sending Catherine Halsey to the Infinity to research the Forerunner device and assist them. Through this part, she ends up getting into discussions with Julum Dama and ends up being captured by him when Prometheans teleport onto the Infinity and capture her. they found out that she had been communicating with him. And at this point in time, Synconi, or Commander-in-Chief of Office of Naval Intelligence, Saren Osman, who was actually a Spartan 2 washout. She was not a washout. The enhancements did not take for her. It did not severely, and she was actually rehabilitated and by Oni.
Oh, so they can actually be rehabilitated at that point? Because
yes,
I was led to
Some
believe
of
that
them
they
can.
couldn't.
Some of them could.
Yeah, not a very high percentage of them could. There was a few.
Right.
There were 75 Spartans that went through the enhancements. 33 died. Well, and I'll put quotes around died, because in most cases the coffins that were shot out into space were empty. A number of them were able to be rehabilitated, and actually some of them actually joined the Spartan 2s. Actually, I believe Black Team, which was featured mainly in the comics, was one of them. But she ends up ordering Captain Lasky to locate and terminate Halsey. The commander of the Spartans, Sarah Palmer, takes this and does a solo job for this. Lasky dispatches the Spartan teams Crimson and Majestic, which are the two teams you in Spartan Ops you play as a member of Crimson. Majestic is the kind of like your sister team that is running in parallel with you. They're sent to rescue Halsey. Palmer wounds Halsey before Mdama escapes with her, and he in his escape, Mdama sends Requiem into the sun there, which is the one part of Spartan Ops that I don't really like, but it is what it is. And it ends and it ends that with Halsey losing an arm at the end because
So can I actually pause this for a quick moment, because this is kind of where my knowledge of Halo has basically come to a stop, because I played through Halo 4 and then I got through the start of Halo 5. But before we jump into Halo 5 and the rescue mission for Halsey and everything else going on, I want to do a quick ad break for our Robots Radio family. And Blue, do you have anything to start this off for the Halo 5 thing now that we're back? And
I mean, this is where a lot of the transmedia of Halo starts really, in my opinion, really starts tying back in and shining, because you have Hunt the Truth, which is just ridiculously well done, and then you also have what was it? Nightfall, which was the other one. I actually really liked Nightfall, which is also going back to Logoko. You also get to see Logoko there too. But like Nightfall was where you kind of got introduced to Locke, especially, but you also get a little bit of a glimpse of like the terrorist acts that Jewel Madama has kind of inspired, I guess would be the best word for it. Because during Nightfall at the beginning, there's an elite basically that does a terrorist bombing on a human colony, and it's a real it's really cool watching Locke's team, which is Fire Team Osiris, which actually
that was still when he was with Oni. He hadn't been with Osiris.
Oh, that's right, because he wasn't a Spartan at that point, right?
No, because he was not a Spartan. He was a Oni fixer.
That's right. Because they had was that the old Spartan 2? That was the big dude. It was like that entire miniseries is actually I really enjoyed it. Not as much as I enjoyed Forward Unto Dawn, but it was pretty good. But so that kind of gives you the sense of Locke's character, which then you play Locke counter to Master Chief in Halo 5. In Halo 5, you have Master Chief on blue team, which is his original team from way back in the day. They are all Spartan 2s, and then Fireteam Osiris is all Spartan 4s.
Yep, all Spartan 4s.
Which, that's where you have Locke, Buck, Tanaka, and Vale. Green, you'll actually recognize this. Locke is played by, I can't remember his name, but he's the guy who does Luke Cage. The Buck is played by none other than Nathan Fillion. I don't remember Tanaka's character, but I know Vale is Laura Bailey.
Yeah.
And the fun fact there is Laura Bailey plays Vale, who's on Team Osiris, and her husband, Travis, plays Fred, who's on blue team. So it's literally a red versus blue situation going on in their household.
That was really, really cool.
I love the...
I think it was Cynthia McWilliams, I think was her voice.
I wasn't...
And Randall 037 was a Spartan from
Randall. That was
former Spartan 2.
Yeah, former Spartan
Nightfall. 2. Yes.
So that was my big thing with Halo 5 was like you had the Hunt the Truth podcast / audio drama, which was just mind-bogglingly well done. And I'm trying to think. There were a lot of big names in Hunt the Truth as well. Mark Hamill was in there.
Keegan.
Yeah, Keegan. What's his name?
Michael Keegan Peele. I can't.
It was
Keegan Peele, and it was he was
Ben Jarreau.
Ben Jarreau, yeah.
Yeah, so that podcast was just and that was a cool podcast because that was again a kind of a throwback that you see that because the main character in the podcast was the PR, like one of the PR contacts that Oni used to, how would you best say, promote the Master Chief during the events of Halo War 2 or Halo 2. Sorry.
Yeah. Ben Jarreau, actually, there was a comic called New Sun over in Mombasa. He was actually the Oni propaganda guy in that. So but Ben Jarreau was not unfamiliar with working with Oni. And this, like I said, his initial job was to essentially put a good face on, tell people about Chief, but all the really, really good stuff and most of the stuff that was a lie. So which most of it ended up not being, he found out most of the true truth of the Spartan 2 program, and it ended up getting him tossed into Midnight Facility, which is a black hole owned by Oni.
A black hole? So is he continually following towards the center?
It's like it's the black
prison?
sites of black
sites.
Prison.
Yeah, it's a black site.
Gotcha.
Huh. But yeah, so
that all culminates and leads up into Halo 5, which is really kind of the culmination of like Halsey's betrayal, I think, but it's not really a betrayal because I still don't really get. Yeah,
that was kind of fleshed out in some of the other transmedia. So that was one of the things about Halo 5. They didn't explain that well in there.
Okay.
In essence, what happens is the opening scene, Fireteam Osiris drops in to a planet called Kamchatka. They go to extract Halsey, who has information about a number of attacks that have started cropping up on a number of UNSC worlds where there's massive destruction. They kill Julum Dama in a cutscene in this.
So you don't get the...
There was a bit of anger about that.
Yeah, so everyone's mad that you don't
skosh.
actually get to kill him. That sucks.
I mean, I see both sides to that one.
I remember that cutscene. I actually was just playing through that the other day because I'm trying again. I'm trying again to make it through Halo 5.
It's a Halo 5 playing solo, I will be honest, that was a slog.
It is difficult. And when you decide to put it on legendary,
Yeah, I did, and
have alcohol nearby.
Yeah.
Because yes. So anyway, in a parallel to this, Blue Team is sent out to recover a ship called the UNSC Argent Moon, which was an Oni research facility. It ends up that the Covenant find it as well, and to keep it from falling in their hands, they go to scuttle it. During this mission, John is contacted by Cortana.
It was supposedly dead.
Yes, and in sending him and Blue Team to Meridian, or asking them to go to Meridian for the reclamation, is how she phrased it. It ends up that when at the end of Halo 4, after Cortana split off the rampant pieces of it, they all fell into the slip space event that was occurring beneath it. That gave Cortana, a fragment of Cortana, access to the domain. The domain is the Forerunner warehouse of knowledge, which allowed her to actually cure rampancy.
Infinite amount of space to work with.
So after scuttling the Argent Moon, Blue Team goes ahead and they essentially go AWOL. In a pretty interesting, I really like that cutscene from a family vibe perspective that it gives. But and then Osiris is sent to bring Blue Team back. At the end of it, Cortana sends a message across the galaxy inviting people to join the Created, which is her group, along with a number of AI, and a number of smart AI do defect and go with her. Because
What's
they
that
feel
for.
That's when everyone went ruh-roh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be fair on their side too, she's promising them a cure for rampancy.
Exactly.
And that's like the big bad for smart AI is,
I mean,
right. It's one of those events that like you're like, I can't really blame you for a lot of them doing that or deciding to do that.
Right. So Cortana wants to try to convince John and Blue Team to join them. John realizes that, this is not the Cortana he knows. She ends up sealing him in a cryptum, with the goal of sealing him in there for 10,000 years to try to convince him.
Because that'll work.
Yeah, it worked so well with the Didact.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's other details with that.
Right,
but
yeah.
It's like,
I realized, I was like, yeah, but...
But anyway, that was her goal. It ends up that Osiris is able to stop her along with the help of a Forerunner AI called Exuberant Witness. They're able to stop that, at least stop Cortana from taking Blue Team. The two Spartan teams then rendezvous on Sanghelios, along with the Swords of Sanghelios and other members of Infinity, including Palmer and Catherine Halsey, to plan what their next steps are. Because Cortana has sent what are known as Forerunner Guardians. They're massive war platforms that essentially will put out a massive EMP, which will knock out all technology.
For what they look like, that's the image that's on the cover art of Halo 5. The winged figure, which is also the mini statue that you got if you got the limited edition game. That's a Guardian. That was one of the Guardians, and that's also what happens at the end of Hunt the Truth. That's the tie-in to it, is you actually get to hear one of the Guardians waking up in the podcast, which is a really cool scene.
And let me just do this. There you go. I just dropped a link in chat as to what a Guardian looks like. It's in the Twitch chat. Sorry.
They's big
that
because
is-
if you look at the bottom, you'll see a banshee.
Oh,
For scale,
Yes.
dang. Okay.
This
they
is one of
big.
those times that size does matter.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I love how
Damn it,
feels-
Wicked.
He's like I
did
did
it.
that.
You did it. That's
I'm blaming
funny.
Wicked. I don't care.
He's not even here.
I don't care. It's his fault.
That's what makes it so easy to blame him.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so giant guardians, which are essentially EMPs, which look like they're part of the Promethean group,
Mhm.
right? Like they're created by Prometheans.
Yep.
Were they intended as essentially EMPs to knock out all technology? Wouldn't that also knock out the Prometheans because they are technology? No?
No.
That's so
Well,
bad.
Prometheans aren't living technology. They just have ancillary suits. And most of them would be on the war platform itself, so
But
No, go ahead.
you're also
okay, so
you're also talking about a race who made the Halo rings. So realize self-destruction's not foreign to them.
sure.
And you have to remember the whole thing which drives everything is the idea of the mantle of responsibility, which essentially is being a caretaker for the universe.
Right, which was put on the humans, correct?
Right.
But
there was a
didn't
group called
know.
Precursors that they were the
Right.
ones who created all this.
Story.
They created everything in the universe. They created the Forerunners. The Forerunners were essentially their military branch. They also created humanity. What they ended up doing was they decided that humanity was going to be the ones that were supposed to take over the mantle. Well,
Right.
this upset the Forerunners, especially since they thought that they would end up being destroyed. So they waged war against the Precursors and either killed them all or drove them all off, and then assumed the mantle of responsibility. They viewed the mantle not as Precursors viewed the mantle of responsibility as kind of like a benign leadership that you kind of let things happen, because everything happens for a reason, unless there's something which would totally knock everything way out of whack. The Forerunners viewed it as an imperial peace, when that's actually something John says in Halo 5. It's an imperial peace, meaning they dictate everything, and they actually prevented races from progressing.
The prophets.
Well, they actually did that with humanity.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. They did. Yeah.
They held, and that's what drove the humans and Forerunners into conflict, along with something else that will take us down another rabbit hole, and we won't go there because we don't have time.
Funny.
Well, we have about 8 minutes, so if we can wrap up this episode and then pick it back up with the advanced episode in Halo Wars 2, if that's okay.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so also in 2558, this is when the Banished arrived on Installation 00, the Lesser Ark, and kill all the UNSC personnel. Last piece for this is Halo Wars 2. This happens in 2559. The UNSC Spirit of Fire, a ship that went missing 28 years earlier, arrives at Installation 00 and comes into conflict with the Banished. After a number of encounters, the UNSC is able to prevent the Banished from getting what they specifically went to the Ark for, which was a Halo ring, because the Arks are what actually created the Halo rings. The scientist on board the UNSC Spirit of Fire, Ellen Anders, is able to take the ring after disabling its weapons to the SOL system. Now, the SOL system is where the original ring from Halo CE was located. This was its replacement. And they took it there to get to the UNSC. Partway there, they're forced out of slip space by a Guardian. And that's where Halo Wars 2 ends. It's also at this point in time that the latest version of Mjolnir armor comes into service. And in November of 2559, the UNSC loses the battle of Installation 07 to the faction of the Banished that appeared at that ring. So, and anything else we can go ahead and kind of pick up next on the next episode. So,
okay, Blue, I'm going to make you take lead because I'm broken by what you put in chat.
I want to give a big shout out to Zombie Dust Dogs because that breaks Green's face. I love that Pin's size. He's just like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
We can't take you anywhere.
It's so... it's like one of the funniest creation stories in the Halo series, and it's just... Oh, it's so good. So good. But no, really though, big shout out to Pins for putting all this notes together. It was really a lot of information that he did a great job boiling down, and I am doing a really good job of driving tangents to make it worse. So yeah, that's my shout out. Pins, do you have any shout outs for the intro session?
Well, shout out to you guys. I don't know why you keep having me come back. I keep telling you there's people who know better than I do, but I'm so very glad to always come on. I really enjoy it, and just wanted to say thank you. So
we love having you on, Pins. It's like a family thing,
Definitely.
Yeah. As far as shout outs go for me, shout outs to the zombie dogs and to Justin, who manages to make Halo seem a lot more crazy than it actually is in some ways, because we actually got to play it with him, sort of.
Justin
like he was in voice chat.
Justin has an unparalleled ability of making call outs for PvP maps.
It's such... Oh, my...
Little big cart. The funny thing is, I know exactly where he's talking about every time. Like, he comes up with the most inane names, and you, like... It's like, I don't even know how to explain it. He comes up with these names, and it's just like, why do I understand what you're saying? Your words, like, the words that you just put together should not make sense. But I know exactly where you are.
Right. The thing is, though, like, his ability to do that and his ability to, like, he calls out random things in lore because he's actually quite knowledgeable in Halo lore as well.
Yep.
And he'll call something out and I'm like, whoa, time out. Because Justin has the innate ability to call something stupid, but it's still accurate.
Yep.
And then I can turn to Pens, who is always there, and be like,
explain
what
this.
the heck what is this? And Pens, like, we talked about the precursors turning into the flood during that evening, which I had forgotten that story, and you were able to explain that. So it's kind of a shout out to Justin, who helps initiate that conversations for me to be able to turn to you and you can explain what is going on.
My brain is broken. Please fix it.
You are my fixer, Pens.
I've been called worse. Okay.
But yeah, that's my shout out tonight to the combo of having you two with Halo at the same time is amazing.
Oh, well, yep. As always, thank you for your time. And until next time, remember, with wisdom we conquer, stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. So zombie dogs and catnip.
Do you want to break Pins real quick before?
Give me
God.
just a couple minutes because I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
It's like the best story ever.
I will try. I will do my best to give you the 5-minute explanation of zombie dogs.
He just put catnip, and I went, no.
Yep. It's not wrong.
I'll be right back.
That's funny. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing is like Neo's saying in chat. It's like the funny thing is the story actually spans eons. Like
Right.
Halo lore in and of itself is actually extremely robust.
One of the questions I have, and this is not necessarily about the specifics of the lore, but the timing of the delivery, more the storytelling aspect. I played maybe 30 minutes of CE back in the day in like college.
Right.
And then
to be fair,
my
if you
next,
go back and play CE, there is next to no story in CE.
That's fair. But like I picked up the books next. I didn't even play a game next. I picked up the books. I read through Fall of Reach and like the ones specifically tied into John. And the next experience I had was ODST. I have no idea where all this hugely in-depth lore about the Prometheans and the precursors and all of that started showing up. That's when I got lost, because I understand the story of John. I understand his arc, but I have no ties to the precursors and everything else.
Right. And that's where like that's what chat's saying right now. It's like 3-4. That's where you get a bit of a different style of execution for story delivery. Like Bungie had their style, and there were difficulties with the way that Bungie told the story. And a lot of behind the scenes difficulties as well. 343 doesn't have those difficulties, but they have a different way of executing the delivery of the story. They are much more open and much more prevalent with the whole transmedia thing. They push a lot of different like sources. And Microsoft, actually, this is becoming very standard with Microsoft. Microsoft is becoming very consume wherever you want the product. That's kind of becoming a staple there. You see, I mean, that's what Xbox is starting to do. And that's where, because of that difference in execution plans, I think that gives more it opens the door more to a lot of different stories. And so you have Black Team, which is running is running its entirely. I don't think they're only in comics at.
Yeah, you had mentioned the comics.
Black Team is in.
They're
Halo
not in
Bloodlines.
But Bloodlines is a graphic novel, right?
Yeah, it's a graphic novel. Yeah.
But they're not. They're
book.
Well, no. Yeah, but that's what I mean is they're not in a novel.
Correct. Yeah.
So they are exclusively to that if you don't read that comic. But the cool thing about the way that Halo's lore has been developed is that not knowing about Black Team doesn't detract from your knowledge from Blue Team. Blue Team's story is in all intents and purposes is a standalone story.
Right, it's inclusive.
Yeah, no, but it helps if you know this, then you know this, and that put together, it actually makes it a richer environment. So what they started doing though with they actually started doing this with Halo 4, but they kind of doubled down on Halo 5. They started coming and they started pulling these things in from those different sources. The problem is when you do that, and this is the delicate line, because if you know about that source, you can't dumb it down for the people who don't know about its source, because you're going to piss off the people who do. So Halo 4 was a really good example of this. Was the Prometheans just kind of got thrown on the screen, and everyone who was playing the game had really no fucking clue who they were. That was my biggest beef
about Halo 4. It's like I had no idea where this story came from.
Right. But the thing is if you were reading the books, they had the Forerunner trilogy.
It's mainly the Forerunner trilogy is what you need to look at.
Jesus Christ, that is a head trip too. I'm not gonna lie, that book trilogy is it's a mind trip.
If you've ever read Greg Bear,
it's amazing. But you definitely have to read it and sit with it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Halo 4, like you said, that was the first time they tried to draw everything in.
Mhm.
And I honestly think that if they could have put a couple, and it's not necessarily the Prometheans, it was the Didact. If Cortana, if there would have been just a couple of lines with like Cortana when she was actually doing some research says, something interesting about, oh, it looks like they're a former Forerunner general was
Sure. Like just like an
entombed or
audio
something like
cue,
that, something like
right?
that. And it doesn't have to be specific, and it doesn't even have to mean it. Or she said something, it reference, something that doesn't make it sound like it applies to Requiem.
Okay.
You say that a Forerunner general was driven mad by the flood and, essentially captured and entombed at some point in time during Forerunner history. Then when you have the Didact appear, it's like, oh, okay, so this dude was driven nuts at some point.
So kind of like how in Destiny, if you're a veteran player, when you get the lines about the Taken on Io, it's just like, oh, these are the Taken. Whereas if you're a new light player or a new player to it, like my PlayStation account is, it gives me the lines about, oh, the Taken, or like it doesn't mention orcs, but it has its information about how that happened a little bit to give you a little bit more. That makes sense.
Okay. Zombie dust dogs.
Okay, so Blue explained that when the precursors reduced themselves to dust,
Yes.
then you had the introduction of a pet, essentially, and the dust is like catnip. That is what he put.
Yes, that's what he put in chat. It's not wholly it. Okay. The precursors, the remaining precursors after the Forerunner defeated them. I really wanted to try and stay on topic. God damn it, Jen.
I mean,
it's
we're
just
not in the
such
episode.
A great story.
Maybe if you want, we could save this for a different Halo night.
And I can't even yell because Erin's asleep and she'll come down and beat me. So yeah. Now let me just do the okay. The Forerunners turned themselves into dust. The remaining ones. They locked themselves in ships and they left themselves adrift. The idea of coming back later on. However, during this period of time, because of game lore, whatever you want to put it, the dust became corrupted. Now, this dust was found by humans, the ancient humans. They did research. They found this was just an inert dust, but what it seemed to have the ability to do would have a calming effect on a certain pet.
I remember
called
this
the
from
Pharaoh.
the books.
Yes, it was called. Yeah. They were called the Pharaoh. Now, the thing is, they put this dust on the Pharaoh. It tamed them. It made them docile. However, it made a very small portion of the Pharaoh exceedingly aggressive, and it also corrupted them with strange growths and things of that nature. And what would end up happening is those would infect other Pharaoh and essentially infect other living entities, including humans. This was the introduction of the flood.
Mm-hmm.
So really, you can draw a direct line from the flood to the precursors. So that's the zombie dust dog thing right there. So essentially,
I just never heard it explained that way. I remember that story from the books, but I just never heard it described as catnip and dust dog. And
you're welcome.
That's because Jay is a unique constellation of attributes.
That is a very polite way of saying he's a weirdo. I'm going to get my chair because my legs are starting to hurt a little bit because I'm standing. So I'm going to reset stuff.
All right.
If I can shut my mic.
I'll see, but I can push through the stuff with Atriox kind of quick, I think, and then we can kind of get into
Atriox is, and then who is it? It's
Isharam. which
Sharam,
there's almost no information on Asharam.
Because we just got introduced to him literally in the clip, right?
Yeah, but I can also kind of just, if you want, we can kind of touch a little bit on Zeta Halo if we want. You know, I won't go into too many deep things, but I'll try to. I mean, I don't know, and also I don't know if we get into Harispus's article, we will be here all night. Not now.
I
honestly,
mean,
it's not that I would mind because I love talking about it, and honestly, I keep telling Duststorm he's got to have Harispus on at some point in time because he is. I don't always agree with him, but the way he writes and how he writes and how he presents his arguments
is amazing.
Are great.
Yeah, because he was the one that did the analysis of Halo 5, if I remember right. Wasn't his the one, the thematic analysis of Halo 5?
No, that's
or is
no,
that
actually the guy who did that actually references Harispus's work.
That's
because
right. Okay.
Harispus was not a fan of Halo 5, and I can totally understand that.
Right.
And he, like I said, the way he phrased it, he loved Halo 4. I loved Halo 4 too, and I totally agree with everything he says about it. He really disliked Halo 5. And the guy who did the thematic analysis of Halo 5 references kind of Harispus and his work and where he disagrees with it. And I'm still annoyed that dude did not finish that.
Oh my God, I know. It's one of those websites that it's like, I haven't checked this in a couple months. Click. Nope. God damn it.
Yeah, pretty much. And the fact that it's on fanfiction.net.
Wait.
Okay.
It's like
came
it's
in
seriously
at a weird time
no
in this
okay
conversation.
It's a weird conversation. Like there's a I can't remember his name, but there's a guy who did a thematic analysis, like a really well done thematic analysis of Halo 5, and like is defending basically it, and he does a really good job, but he only got like halfway through it or a fourth of the way through it. And he was like,
that link's in chat for you. I threw that in the
it's
the
like one of the it's one of the best written things I've read, and it's infuriating because it's not finished.
he only got through fanfiction.net. Yes, that's
like, I'm sorry, I've been to fanfiction.net, but not to read a fucking dissertation on Halo lore. I'm sorry.
No one has. That's why it's ingenious.
I sat there and in between reading Harry and Ginny fan fiction or How to Train Your Dragon or Justice League, whatever you want to call it.
I'm partial to Overwatch.
Well, yeah,
sure.
But in any event, I came across that, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of like, why is this here? This is something I would expect on a blog.
This is not the place for an encyclopedia. What is this doing?
I mean, it's probably got way more traffic here, just to be honest. Like, Halo fan fiction is a thing too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's just like Rule 34. It's out there.
Yep. Oh yeah. Just is a
I will admit,
choice, Cotton.
Yeah.
And it paid off, so
I honestly though, it's again, this person went ahead and started putting stuff together and was really well thought out and really well done. Like I said, that's also why I love Harispus's work. So, Vuru, the answer to that is
yes.
Yeah,
the answer to that is
yes. That's why I'm laughing. There's
everything.
That website, and then the other one is Archive of Our Own, which actually, did you know Orchid is one of the main mods for it?
Yeah, she does the tag. She does tag organization for Archive of Our Own.
Archive of Our Own.
She also loves talking about the legal situation. If you ever want to hear some fun stories.
And just because I've spent time on both of those sites, I will say this: Archive of Our Own has a tendency to do lean more on the mature side.
Yes.
Fan fiction at least has a
There's filters.
K through teen.
There's
K
filters.
through teen
Yeah.
version before you hit the M. Archive of Our Own is pretty much M. And that's a hard M in some cases.
That's funny. I actually did not know. I know you're not wrong. I didn't actually know Archive of Our Own existed until I moved to Colorado because I had a coworker who was really into writing fan fiction for that site. So I only experienced the fanfiction.net version for a long time.
So anyways, next episode.
We have a couple people in our Discord who've posted Destiny stories at Archive of Our Own as well.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, there's they were
talking
Jamoli
and LeChance.
Yeah, I think that was the one that posted it earlier today.
Yeah, look in content creation.
I just never go into that.
Yeah.
Oh, I have that channel muted. That's why.
Okay.
Interesting.
All right, we'll stop, Furu.
She put another picture of her Xbox. That's so nice.
Yeah, it is.
Anyways.
Take two.
Ready when you guys are.
All right, let me. Okay. Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on August 7th, 2020 over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat as we continue our discussion over the information leading up to Halo Infinite. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the advanced session of the week's exploration. Congratulations to those who signed up for a deeper dive. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is the now educated about Dust Dog's green-eyed music lover. The zombie Dust Dogs.
Zombie Dust Dogs.
I now know that catnip is bad for dogs.
It's bad for dogs. Hold on to your butts.
Can't take you anywhere.
And nope, you can't. And last but definitely not in the least is the hot scene guest host. I can't even get through this.
He's broken. Oh gosh.
We have our good friend Ben Taylor. Vince, how are you doing? Yep.
I'm doing well.
So, anyways, moving on.
We're not drinking.
No, we're all naturally like this.
To be fair,
live.
This is pretty much a standard Halo night for us. So,
anyone who's, for all you poor bastards that have listened to all 5 of them, I'm sorry. But yeah.
Sorry, not sorry. So, who are the Banished, Pins?
Okay. The Banished are, as we found in the trailer, or the game demo for Halo Infinite, the Banished are going to be the primary antagonists that we're going to fight against. The Banished were actually introduced in Halo Wars 2. They are a faction of primarily Eurohane brutes that rebelled against the Covenant. The group is led by a Eurohane war chieftain by the name of Atriox. I'm going to kind of run through the summary here, but there's actually a cutscene from Halo Wars 2 that it gives an excellent summary, and I'll go ahead and just drop that there into the Twitch chat. But it's really, really good. So you can't talk about Atriox and the Banished are tied together, so we're just going to kind of run with that from here. Atriox was born into the Covenant. Once he became of age, he joined the Covenant and became known for his strategic genius and tenaciousness. The Covenant realized this, and to help take advantage of it, he and his packmates during the Human Covenant War were under the command of a Sangheili Silent Shadow. The Silent Shadow are essentially Sangheili assassins. And their primary goal was the hunting and slaying of demons. And that meant Spartan 2s, as they were known in the Covenant.
I just remember hearing grunts scream about demons being us. That is my... Mm-hmm. And that's right before they cheered, yay!
Yes.
Their head off.
Followed by the pop, or actually the pop first, then you get the yay.
Yeah.
Grunt birthday party's a great skull.
Best Easter egg ever.
So anyway, he served loyally for a long period of time, but at some point in time, the Covenant started using his clan as frontline troops, essentially as fodder, the idea that they were to break the UNSC lines. So they would send them 40 at a time, and against to be the vanguard to break the line, and then there'd be a follow-up. But the 40 would die. They would die 40 at a time. And in many cases, the battle had been decided and they were still doing this. This happened time and time and time again, until the thing is, Atriox was the only one who started coming back from these. He would go out with 39 other of his packmates. He's the only one who'd come back. Again, this happened so many times that eventually he lost faith in the Great Journey, which was the whole religious basis of the Covenant. At the same time, though, because he kept coming back, he kept surviving, his legend started to grow, specifically among the Yorohane, but among other members of the Covenant as well. The prophets saw Atriox as a threat now. So, on a planet named Algolis, they sent 40 of them out. He came back. At this point in time, he came across a single wounded Marine. He let him try to get away from him, but the Marine was wounded, couldn't make it. So just before he killed the Marine, he went ahead and expressed severe disdain and hatred for the Covenant, and essentially stated he didn't believe in it anymore. Another Yorohane heard this and challenged him for heresy, and Atriox killed him. When Atriox turned back to the base, there was a Sangheili executioner, which was essentially a senior in the Silent Shadow, and sentenced Atriox to death for betraying a member of his pack. Atriox, and you can actually see this in the video, he drops his hammer, falls to his knees. The Sangheili lights his energy sword and goes to stab him in the face. Atriox stops him by raising his hand and capturing the sword, which actually cuts into the side of his hand. He then kills the executioner that was going to kill him, which led his packmates who were still present to take action against the other Sangheili. So at that point in time, that's when the Banished were born. At the beginning, it was mainly just Yorohane that came to his side, although there was some Ungoi, the grunts, who were there as well. The early years of the Banished was all guerrilla warfare. They primarily raided Covenant stockpiles, but they also raided some Covenant from UNSC.
Eyes up, Guardian.
This is around 2550, and this is about the time the UNSC actually heard of Atriox. It was from a grunt that they had captured, who went on and on about about essentially this war leader who didn't have any religious fervor, but he led because troops knew what he wanted and what he stood for, rather than, and that inspired the loyalty.
That's just, I'm sorry. The whole idea of a grunt being the chatterbox is so surprising. So surprising.
Isn't it though?
I'm sorry. Like, anybody who's spent any time in Halo hears those guys just gossiping like old women at a coffee shop.
What's even better is in Halo 5, there's a
Oh,
couple of
God.
them who are sitting around the Sword of St. Helios. And it's just amazing.
That particular scene, we've all seen the videos of a young pup messing around with an old dog, and the dog's just kind of the older pups just kind of looking at it, sitting there going, "Yeah, whatever, kid." That is played out in one of the hub scenes in Halo 5. If you go wandering around, you will find this.
It's so
They're
amazing.
they're sitting on a cliff. They're sitting on a cliff. They're overlooking which actually a pretty nice, beautiful looking scene. And you just hear the grunt going on and on and on and on. And every now and again, you hear this grunt from the Sangheili.
Oh no.
It's amazing.
It's priceless.
So the grunt basically gives up the information a little bit about it, going on and saying there's this guy, he's not tied to the religion like everybody else is, but he stands for something, he has a belief, and he's got purpose, he's got drive. So we're gonna do this kind of thing with him. That's where they kind of start banding up, or
yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much where it kind of started. Like I said, the UNSC at that point in time was more concerned with defeating the Covenant. They weren't interested in a faction. They actually would have probably been more saying, okay, fine, internal division in the Covenant. Great, that helps us.
Right.
You know, so.
And they kind of did that with the Arbiter.
Yeah. So once the Covenant actually fell apart in 2553, this actually allowed a lot of remaining Covenant to come to Atriox's side. This gave him a huge fleet. This gave him a large number of troops. This included a Covenant, a Sangheili assault carrier, which is one of the largest ships in the Covenant, was one of the largest ships in the Covenant fleet, and named the Enduring Conviction, along with its experienced Sangheili crew. Over the next 8 years, through raiding and pillaging and whatnot, and stealing, they became, like I said, an extremely large power. This all came to 8 years later, where they went ahead and attacked the Lesser Ark. Now, when you're talking about Halo, the Lesser Ark are the places are the forges by which where the Halos are made. The idea was Atriox wanted to go there and create a Halo ring, so he could use that in his conquests. He didn't have any luck with this, and then in 2559, that's when the Spirit of Fire arrives at the Ark and fight the Banished, and end up fighting, and they beat him to the Halo ring, like I mentioned in the intro episode. Along this time, as most people, if you've played Halo 3, you know that on the Lesser Ark, the city of High Charity crash landed on it, and when it was infected by the flood. So the Lesser Ark had a flood infection that had been isolated. Well, because of a couple of mistaken Yohane, a flood outbreak occurred, but they were able to contain that and stop it from going through. And then also at this time, the Banished had to deal with an Ungoi rebellion led by Yap Yap. So, yeah.
Okay, so the Yap Yap.
Yep.
Is that the giant grunt that we fight that's in the mech?
No.
In Warzone?
I think there is one that is Yap Yap.
I believe so, but this was Yap Yap the Destroyer.
It's like, okay.
He was a low-ranking deacon in the Covenant's Ministry of Sanitation before being kidnapped by the Banished.
So he dealt with crap all the time. Got it. Okay,
Yes.
so he's
he was an
he's a
Ungoi.
sewer grunt.
Was this what? Okay, was this the rebellion that was because they were shorted breathing methane, or was that was under the Covenant?
that was under the Covenant that occurred.
Okay. Because I remember there was that one. They were deliberately shorting them breathing methane because they're like, oh, it's got population control, and the Ungoys understandably got a little pissed about that.
Sure. I'm just thinking like, okay, Yap Yap. My first thought was Jub Jub from Star Wars.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
But if Jub Jub actually led a rebellion.
I mean, he kind of did.
Kind of, but like he didn't talk all the time.
No, he didn't.
Yap Yap probably talked all the time, as says his name, because he's a Yap Yapper.
I mean, she's not wrong.
No, she's not.
But it's not just Yap Yap. It's Yap Yap, the Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
The Destroyer.
This is all I can picture is a gnome barbarian. That's all I can
I just
halfling
want somebody. I want a 5th grader who hears the name Yap Yap the Destroyer to draw it, because you're gonna get the strangest
Whip Squad
cartoon.
Go. And,
right?
And of course, he is also the impetus behind the yappening, which is
Wait.
And Green's broken.
It's an in-game kind of thing where essentially, for a period of time, Yap Yap makes inroads to the game and wreaks havoc in-game with like silly game types and game functionality. Yeah,
Happening like
yes.
You can't say that Halo
also,
multiplayer doesn't take itself super seriously.
That is brilliant.
I threw the link to the yappening in Halopedia, and I'll give it to Blue so he can go ahead and put it in the show notes. Please go read it, and just know that
I'm sorry.
Halo does not take itself seriously on this, and it is great.
The best part is the Master Chief
image.
collection. The Master Chief collection screen when it happens. It's the giant
that's what I'm looking at. Like that's the first
constellation.
thing that caught my eye. Is just this like glorious shadow grunt kind of thing, just arms out like and it's
so the only thing I remember, because I play SWAT all the time with Halo.
uh-huh.
So when you play on Yappening, last year at least, they have what's called the head pop party. It's SWAT. But it's got the grunt birthday party Easter egg on it.
Oh, nice.
So all you hear is pop, yay!
The entire game. It was like everyone's KD dropped because everyone is just dying laughing the entire time.
That's awesome.
It's just...
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
and by the way, in the Master Chief collection is called the Yappening 2 Yaps this time.
Oh no.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's clever. I like that one. I like that one. Crisscross. Back to the thing.
Okay, so that's kind of back on target here. So that's really the summary of Atriox and the Banished there.
Okay.
Essentially, it is they're pretty much at this point in time nearly as powerful as the Covenant was, except, like I said, they're not religiously motivated. They're motivated by a charismatic leader, which actually makes them more dangerous in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the other Yorlhane that we need to discuss is a brute warchief by the name of Isharam. This is the one that gets introduced to us in the Halo Infinite trailer. The one set a fire in your heart, Spartan. Is that the last line is actually really, really good. We don't have a lot of information on him. All that we know is that he's a war chief. And when Atriox led troops to the Lesser Ark, he rose in power to the remaining Banished that were left. And it is this group that discovered Installation 07 and defeated the UNSC in 2559.
Mm-hmm.
So it from the trailer or the clip at the end of the gameplay demo, he seems like he is someone who fights, who lives to fight, who is always looking for the next challenge. Just based upon the way he spoke, because there are lines in there that seem to indicate that for a long time he didn't have any motivation because there was no one worthy to fight him, and then all of a sudden, here's this demon. Although, how did he put it? Like the UNSC calls them Spartans. The Covenant called him demon. To the Banished, he's prey.
Oh gosh.
So
Yeah.
and it's like I said, it's somebody who seems to be highly motivated when there's someone who he sees as an equal in combat,
Right.
and he wants to measure himself against someone who is his equal. And that's the kind of what I kind of see from him in there. So
Okay. So Blue just threw in a factoid. Is that the guy playing Escharum? Is that how you say his name?
Escharum.
Escharum is the same guy who plays Callus and Reinhardt, and I did not realize that Darren DePaul played Reinhardt played Callus.
Yeah, and actually, John DiMaggio is the voice actor for Atriox, who is, if I remember this correctly off the top of my head, Banshee.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I actually know Darren DePaul a little bit better because I love watching him. He's a very charismatic voice actor who also does all the Reinhardt stuff.
Yeah, he can also uncannily switch into Reinhardt voice so crazy quick.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Okay, so that's actually a good place to stop before we dive into a little bit more on Installation 07 or Halo Ring, whatever it is. I feel like I've been put in a blender. My brain has a little bit. There are contents in there that are recognizable, and I'm starting to get a coalescence of something that could be a smoothie eventually, but right now it's still...
She's still recovering from the yappening.
That one's having a hard time. But let's take a quick break before we jump into that. So, okay, moving past the yappening, moving past the Reinhardt voice and everything else going on with that, there are other things that are possibly coming forward within Infinite or going to come forward that it's just like, okay, when was Chief woken up? Chief hasn't been woken up. He's still in the thing, isn't he? Like, that didn't happen at the end of Halo 5 that I like. He's still in tune-ish?
No. Well, kind of with the trailer that was released in E3 last year. What we see is Chief is floating in space, and his Mjolnir armor kind of is locked down to protect him.
Okay.
That is a new version of Mjolnir. It was introduced in 2559. So we know that we know that he wasn't like in cryo at some point in time. Well, I shouldn't say that. We know that he has his new armor, so we know at some point in time he was either en route or heading to Installation 07. Just as a side note, there's a novel coming out later this year called Shadows of Reach. It takes place in October of 2559, and it's Blue Team returning back to Reach because of something that Halsey says is needed to try to combat Cortana.
Okay.
We don't know any other details. So that takes place, I think, a month or so before essentially the loss to the Banished. So we don't, I'm kind of what my hope is that, and the novel will be written by Troy Denning, who's done a great job in the other two novels with Master Chief that he's done. He's picked up the mantle that Nyland set exceedingly well. Excuse me. So what I'm hoping is that and the other thing is that mission, we know it's not at the beginning. They said that it's about 3 to 4 hours into gameplay where that particular mission happens. So there's definitely something more ahead of it. And part of it, I would assume, what I'm hoping is we have information of how Chief got there. Was he on a ship that was destroyed? It seems like he was en route to 07, and not 07 and not on the ring itself, because he's unaware of the loss that occurred. So, and also in one of the other cutscenes at the end of the gameplay trailer, you see him in the Pelican with the pilot who all of the Halo community has affectionately called Brohammer.
Okay.
I still wish that was Mashak. I'm not gonna lie. I was hoping, like, when I first heard him, I was like, and then it was like, no, it's not him. But
no, back in Halo 1, the name of the pilot of the Pelican who always shuttled you all over the place was Foehammer.
Oh, gotcha.
And as a side note, in the script for the Halo movie, and yes, there was an actual script for a Halo movie,
which would later become District 9.
Yes. And it was implied that Chief and Foehammer had some type of relationship.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Fanfiction.net. What?
Huh.
Well, I mean, it was very loosely, or they were very close friends at the very least.
I mean, considering how Chief doesn't really. Anyway, I'm gonna move on from that.
Yes.
Okay.
So, in any event, the Halo community started because we didn't have the pilot's name, so they started calling him Brohammer.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do. So, and that's kind of where, and I totally lost my train of thought.
Sorry. Okay. You have possibility of Brohammer shuttling Chief to the installation.
Yep.
But if that's just a theory at the moment, or do we you said that was kind of sort of in the trailer that everyone at E3?
Yeah, at the E3 trailer, you see the pilot kind of clean shaven. You figure he's kind of drifting in space. He's fairly clean, so you figure this probably isn't that long after, I guess, the initial battle.
Okay.
And then the way the scene goes is you see there's like a little holographic thing that's, I guess, his wife and his kid talking, and it kind of circles it, and you can kind of see that it has a ring that shows how much charge is in the battery, and it's draining. And when it goes all the way back around, you see him with a full beard, and like he looks like he hasn't had a shave and a haircut in probably a couple of months.
Sure.
There's an alert, a beeping outside of it detecting something. He thinks it's someone coming to save him, and he starts trying to call out. He wipes the frost off the window, and that's when you see Chief floating outside. He brings him in, charges the suit back up. We also get in the other thing in the boot screen that appears, there's if you stop it and you look, there's something called Spider, SPDR. That is actually a reference to something that occurred in I Love Bees, which was the ARG for Halo 3.
Yeah, Halo 3 was the ARG for I Love Bees.
Essentially, it is a program used to recompile an AI that has been damaged.
Okay.
And also in that particular, in what someone else found in that boot sequence was a barcode, or a QR code, I should say, that when you scan, took you to a piece of audio that was Jen Taylor as Cortana saying, "This is a piece of me, but this is familiar. It's a piece of me." And it sounds much younger than what you were used to Cortana being. So some people believe that we have either Halsey creates another Cortana clone from her brain,
right?
Or, and we're going to harken back to the 2 Halo ones ago when we talked about Halsey's journal.
Right.
The reason Cortana is so different from other smart AI is that normally when you create a smart AI, it is from a human brain, but it's someone who's deceased. Halsey created Cortana by cloning her own brain and then mapping all of her, like the brain patterns over, and then generated it. Now, the thing is, she didn't just generate one. I think she generated a dozen cloned brains. So it's possible that what Chief and Blue Team do is they go to Reach to recover one of the brains to allow another Cortana to be created.
So where is Halsey at this point?
Her last position would have been on the actually would have been on Sanghelios. At the end of Halo 5, as I mentioned before, the final cutscene is Team Osiris and Blue Team coming off of a Pelican and meeting up with the Arbiter, Sarah Palmer, and Halsey.
Okay.
And the final line is a line from Halsey. It says, "Took you long enough," when she's speaking directly to John, because this would have been the first time in, let's see, 2552, 8 years. This would have been the first time in 8 years that Halsey and John have been together. Okay. And I so want a story of that meeting.
Like when they meet back up for the first time?
That's kind of just left out there. There's nothing specific. It's touched on in the book Bad Blood, which focuses mainly on Buck. All he says is they kind of, like, Blue Team went off with Halsey and they talked about something, but there's nothing specific. But
okay.
So that's kind of, I mean, there is some supposition, there is some thought that we have another Cortana clone to either try to recompile or absorb the rampant Cortana in, or to defeat it, or do something, which would kind of parallel the whole mendicant bias and offensive bias. Mendicant bias was a Forerunner AI that got turned to the Flood and betrayed the Forerunners for the Flood. The Forerunners created offensive bias to defeat mendicant bias. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the UNSC is going to create a Cortana clone AI to defeat the rampant Cortana that is the leader of the created.
Okay, so Cortana is will the Cortana, if she isn't absorbing the quote unquote bad Cortana, who is not the Cortana we used to know, because she's somebody we just don't know anymore. Now I have that song in my head. If the Cortana that we see in Infinite does not do any sort of absorption or anything like that, do we think that Chief and her are going to be, I mean, they're going to be compatible because they were compatible prior, because they were initially put together, but that's got to be painful for Chief because she wouldn't have any of those memories necessarily.
Yeah.
She would be a blank slate.
Yeah, and there's a right after in Halo 4, right after and the mission is called Composer. At the end of it, after Chief survives, you see Cortana like crouched on the pedestal with essentially her head in her arms, and Chief wakes up, and she says in there, you know, they'll pair you with another AI. They may even give you another Cortana model, but it won't be me. You know that, right? It's at that point that I think, and maybe I'm reading into this, but it's at that point that I see Cortana realizing that the odds of her coming out the other side are slim to none. Now, Chief is the one who essentially believes he can still win. And fun fact, Halo 4 is the first time that you as Chief lose, because the mission, the overriding mission of Halo 4 wasn't to defeat the Didact, it was to get Cortana back to Earth, to get her healed, fixed, however you want to phrase it. And that didn't happen.
Right.
Because that was the whole thing, was he was trying to get back to Halsey, because the entire time Halo 4 he was Halsey will have an answer. Halsey will fix this. Halsey will fix this. Halsey will know what to do. Which is why the ending was so painful, you know, as you guys were talking about, because that's where the line that he, like, I think it's Lasky actually makes the comment about like which one's more machine and which one's more human about with Chief, and it's just it was so Chief, interesting that dynamic.
Chief says that it's our duties as soldiers. And Lasky comes back with the phrase, something to the fact that he's like, you say that like soldiers
are not human,
are not human, and we're not. Or that we're
that's right,
because soldiers are machines. And his last line is, she said that to me once about being a machine.
Because Chief is always the machine.
Up just talking about
God. Chief was always the machine, and Cortana was always the human heart of the pair.
Right.
And so that was like the whole thing was like Halo 4, and with Halo 5 too, is like that's the conflict that Chief has, is he's being forced to grow as a character, to not have to depend on the whole someone else telling him what to do. He has to make some of his he makes his own choices, like that. I'm not saying that, but like he makes choices in the moment, which is what Chief, like, and they talk about this in Hunt the Truth. Like, he's very, very, very good at making split-second choices and making the right choice, and he's always been that. But he's
not
operates,
emotionally driven. He's logically driven. That's
it's actually even like, there's that, but it's also, he doesn't operate on a big picture. He operates in, he's a very much squad oriented, individual oriented decision maker. Whereas Cortana was always the one being like, okay, we got to go there. So now we have to do this, and this. And she would set like counterpoints to him.
Yeah.
But Chief would be like, okay, I can't get here by path A, so I'm going to go to path B, or whatever. He would get to the checkpoints, but Cortana was the one that was setting the end goal, or Lasky became the next one that was setting the end goal. And then we see, like, that's like Halo 4 and Halo 5. You start seeing different characters kind of take on the role of Cortana in trying to drive that. And that's where at the end of Halo 4 it was so hard, because it's basically the Band-Aid gets ripped away, and he's left there kind of hanging with the fact that like there is no one who is showing him the big picture anymore.
And I know this is a little bit off tangent, but the thing with Chief and Cortana is you have to remember they weren't paired until 2552, literally just before the fall of Reach. So
was it right before or was it after? I thought it wasn't.
It was in the book The Fall of Reach.
Oh, in the book, yeah, okay. That's
John is paired with Cortana essentially a few months before the Halo CE. Because there was the scene in there about Ackerson making them run an obstacle course, and that is
oh my god, I forgot that scene.
Using the armor or getting ready to use the armor.
Yeah,
that's actually when he got the updated Mjolnir armor too.
Yeah, that's also when you saw how scary Cortana could be when she gets territorial about Chief.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, but But in any event, but the other thing is that, and anyway, I'm not down this tangent. Let me just finish this off. The thing is, there was only one of the Spartan 2. Halsey saw all the Spartan 2s as her children, which was kind of messed up because she didn't have a relationship with her own daughter. But she saw all of the Spartans as her children. But the one she had the greatest connection with was John.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not that far to believe, because the way she created Cortana as a direct clone, that the clone would also have that connection to John. The other thing is that when Halsey had Cortana choose a Spartan to be paired with, she chose John. She actually modified her own processing buffer to essentially make her like 99% compatible with John. So even though they were paired for a very short period of time, you essentially have two entities that are essentially totally compatible with one another. So it's not a surprise that the two of them bonded like they did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a romantic love, but there is love there. So
well, it's the way it's just depicted in Halo 4, it's almost as if there is there's quite the codependency, between the two of them. John needs Cortana in a lot of ways throughout the Halo 4 stories, and then you see that Cortana in a lot of ways also needs John. Because you see her meltdown and her breakdown. But
and John is her strength at those times too.
Right.
Like, I think it makes me think of like the 4 types of love: the eros, the storge, the agape, and the philia. And this I would say this is more like a philia, which is like the love of friends and equals. Yeah. Because I mean, and it's almost agape. Like, I mean, it almost is, because it's just like they operate on the same page, like without thinking, like, without even realizing it.
Right.
Yeah.
So may I redirect our little tangent a bit?
Yes.
So what I'd like to get into is probably the thing that most people are most excited about, which I think you mentioned at the beginning, and I want to take a quick ad break before we jump into the Halo ring that we're heading to.
Okay.
All right, so moment that everybody's been waiting for. What do we know about Site-07?
Okay. There's a lot, frankly, but I'll try to give the cliff notes on this. And okay, so the one thing you have to remember about the Halo rings is that all of them were built at facilities known as the Ark. Now, the thing is, there were two Ark facilities, a greater Ark and a lesser Ark. The bulk of the Halo rays that we had come across in game were all created at the lesser arc. They all have a diameter of 10,000 kilometers. However, the ones that were created on the greater arc actually were 3 times bigger. They had a diameter of 30,000 kilometers. There were initially 12 of the Halo array that were from the greater arc, and then there were 6 that were from the lesser arc. The other difference is the lesser arc pulses, when they fired, were omnidirectional. They would go in all directions. The greater arc would only fire in a conical form.
Right.
So, Installation 07 originally was one of the 12 that were manufactured at the greater arc.
This fires one direction only.
At originally,
conically,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is the location that also had a large number of after the human Forerunner War, a large number of humanity was devolved, which is probably the best way to essentially to make them pre-technological, and they actually lived in certain places in Forerunner sites, and one of the main sites was Installation 07. It had a huge human population. Now, one of the other things about 07 was this was the site that when Mendicant Bias, essentially, this was the ring that eventually held the Primordial, which, long story short, was essentially the very first grave mind. It was a flood. It was a flood grave mind.
Okay.
This is the thing that actually, after 40 some years of discussion, turned Mendicant Bias against the Forerunners. It also was the one where, in the Human Covenant War, it was found that the reason the humans were pushing into Forerunner space was because the flood was attacking them. But the flood turned around and stopped. Well, it ended up that they thought that humanity had genetically modified like 1/3 of its population and essentially fed them to the flood, and they thought that's what stopped it. So, and then of course with that done, and after what the Forerunners did to humanity in devolving them, the flood started coming after the Forerunners. So the Forerunners wanted to figure out what the humans did. Well, they used 07 as a site to test humans for what genetic part of the humanity will allow the flood to be stopped. So this all happens in Halo Primordium, which is the second book in the Forerunner series. Essentially, the Forerunners perform a lot of horrific acts against the humans there to try to figure out why they how they were able to turn the flood back. The Palace of Pain was the name given to the site where this testing occurred by the humans who were living on the ring. It ended up that the master builder, who was the one who had decided to perform these acts, he was put on trial by the Forerunners. It ended up that Mendicant Bias brought all of the original 12 Halo array to the homeworld of the Forerunner to essentially destroy him. It was during this time that he got stopped, essentially by a clone of the Didact, which is another story altogether. Short answer. Forerunners have the ability to imprint themselves on other Forerunners to allow them to mature. It sounds like it's a maturing rate. The Didact, before he got driven mad, actually left his imprint on another Forerunner by the name of Born Stellar. Born Stellar Last Eternal was his name, and he became essentially a copy of the Didact. This copy of the Didact was able to halt the attack on the Forerunner homeworld to an extent. And during this, one of the safety features of the ring was when they came under attack, they would escape. So when 07 went to escape, it ended up getting destroyed, and it essentially the Forerunners reconfigured it to shrink it down from a 30,000 kilometer array to a 10,000 kilometer array, and adjusted its firing so it would be omnidirectional, not a conical firing.
So even though it's part of the original 12, it functions and looks exactly, well, mostly like the newer ones that we deal with that are the omnidirectional arrays that we deal with originally. Okay, so why did they shrink it down? To try to hide it, possibly? Or?
Because it got damaged.
Because a huge section got damaged when it was escaping. Okay. So instead of and they had lost at that point in time. No, they hadn't lost the greater arc yet, but they couldn't repair it at the greater arc. So they just essentially said, "Okay, we're going to lop this section off and shrink it down."
They basically resized it for a wedding ring. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how we got all the Lego sets.
Well, actually, Neo mentions it in chat that part of a safety thing to try to prevent it from falling into enemy hands was to essentially send it crashing into a planet. However, Mendicant Bias was able to change it so it'd pass around the planet, not through it, but there was enough gravitational shearing that took place that damaged it.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what it ended up getting shrunk in that. So pretty much. And then again, it was it was then renamed 07 to make it the 7th of the 10,000 array, 10,000 kilometer diameter array. It went through its firing sequence whenever when the copy Didact fired.
Yeah, ISO Didact.
Actually, his ISO Didact is the Ore Didact was the one that was driven mad by the flood. That's the one we came across in Halo 4. The ISO Didact was the good one, his copy.
Okay.
He was the one who actually initiated the firing of the Halo array. And Installation 07 was the last one to be found. Like I said, it was 2553. And the UNSC had actually sent people there to research it. And the thing is with 07, because it's originally was a 30,000 diameter and it got shrunk, the maps of like how the other 6 array were built really don't apply to it. So that's why you kind of see the landscape look totally different from any other Halo array that we've come across so far.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is so old. It is hundreds of thousands of years older than the other Halo array that we've been on, which from a story perspective leads to huge possibilities. I mean, there was also 10 proto grave mines that were supposed to be on that ring. There were supposed to be a number of different monitors there on that ring. You have the Palace of Pain, which is where all the testing came done. You have the chamber where the Primordial was stored. Now, what the ISO Didact did with the Primordial was essentially sped up time, and so essentially the primordial broke down into dust. So it's
Just don't bring dogs around it.
no, don't.
Just don't feed the dogs the dust.
Exactly, you're fine.
Just don't. Okay, so
that's kind of the real quick and dirty of it.
Okay.
There's a lot more.
So
on
there's a ton of story potential, is what I'm hearing from having all those different possible antagonists.
Well, it's not just
showing up.
antagonist either. It's the like the Lifeworker central hub is on it.
Right.
So I mean, like there's a host of information as well that they could take and go their own way.
But
Like
I'm sorry. One of the things that I thought was most interesting that caught my ear a little bit was when you had mentioned the Palace of Pain, specifically having modified, because this was you said it was tested on humans, modified humans that we've never dealt with before. Like, the possibility of that is really intriguing to me.
Yeah, I mean, part of it was the Forerunners doing their testing, and then at one point in time, they were essentially exposing them to the flood, too. So,
well, and that's also when you got to see the beacons, like mind controlling, or not mind controlling, but subduing.
Yeah. God damn it, Raz.
That's not my fault.
No,
that's not my.
No,
that is not my fault.
That's Wicked's. That's Wicked's fault.
But I mean, but the interesting thing about this one is that it has the Lifeworker beacons, which are basically devices that were embedded across the ring. Do the other rings have beacons on them? I'm assuming they do, right?
Honestly, I can't remember right now. I don't remember.
But anyway, so like beacons are basically the devices that it basically it with a subtle it basically hijacks entities, what they refer to as Gias, which is basically their instincts, and you can control them through that. So it's a really interesting kind of manipulation of like an instinctual sense of a being by the Lifeworkers or the Forerunners to control them, which is how they were able to control them with the Palace of Pain. They actually would just round them up and just basically herd them with these beacons.
Yeah, I mean that one is specifically mentioned on 07, but I don't think I've seen it referenced on any other ring. So, but that's kind of, that's what, like I said before, that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to finding out is the history. That ring is unlike any other ring that we've come across, and admittedly, there's Alpha and Delta Halo, which is the rings from CE and 2, respectively. This ring is totally different, which, like I said, brings up so many different possibilities. And that's really one of the really neat things that I'm really looking forward to on that. So.
Interesting. I'm out of questions. I don't know where to go with this. I'm excited to know, like, the concept of the oldest ring that we have ever experienced is really cool. Like that I'm excited to go see. I'm excited to see the stories that they're going to draw out of it. The fact that there's so many different tie-ins between the flood, even like you mentioned, that the one got turned to dust, which is like, okay, are we going to start that thing all over again? And then the grave mines and
just
everything.
Bring your vacuum
it's just
cleaner.
Like,
we're good.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that does not work. That does not work. I'm sorry. I like anybody who cleans on a regular basis knows that you're not going to get rid of all the dust with a vacuum.
Get rid of most of it, though.
Well, then what you could potentially do is just evacuate the atmosphere
Swiffer it
and let it all
after
go into space. Of course,
Chat's like, I mean, that's what we do.
But then again, you eject it into space, and all of a sudden you'll end up with key mines.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's not how the Force works.
I just my mind goes to, okay, you vacuum it all up, right? Like, where are you gonna put the canister? You can't just throw it in the garbage.
In the sun.
You can't just jettison it.
Just jettison it into the sun.
Dogs.
Then it turns into like a rabbit embryo and strikes somebody on the head, killing them, kicking off the whole awoken, like Mara's like trauma as a child.
No, then we dip into Star Wars and get the Sun Crusher.
Yes, all of this.
Oh boy,
Kip Durin, let's go.
There is a lot of streams being crossed right now.
That's when the fun starts. So anyway, shout outs.
Marshmallow Man.
Oh. Tasty.
Yes. Okay, shout outs for the advanced episode. Shout outs to live chat. Shout out also to Miss Reyes, who is in chat, as well as Wicked. Raz in particular, who is back home and feeling much better. And then shout out to Wicked, who got a shout out during the episode without even being here, because you're getting blamed for something you didn't even do, but you're still getting blamed for it. So
exactly.
I love how she told on us.
Yep, absolutely, because they're here now to hear it.
I was going to tell him anyway.
Oh, okay.
Besides, he knows he's always at fault.
That's true. Pins, what about you? Do you have any shout outs for the advanced session?
I'm going to give a shout out to 343. And there's a lot going on in the world and whatnot. And I know that they have people there, just like at any major studio, who all they really want to do is put out the best possible game. And having read through some of the reactions of people and frankly, some of the stupidity that some people have said and done, I just want to say to them that I can't wait to see what they put out. And, I'm going to withhold any judgment on that until I get my hands on it. I just wish them the best, and that whatever they put out, I'm sure that they put their heart behind it. And then also, like I said before, just thanks again for having me on. I know I tend to ramble and kind of start chasing squirrels here and there. But there's a lot of that with the Halo universe. I find myself just going, oh, then there's this, which depends on that, which depends on that. And just thanks everyone for being patient, for everyone who came out to listen and who does listen to this. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
No, I mean, really, I'm just going to double down on what you said, especially about 343. I know a lot of people love to take sides and make judgments about stuff that they don't do. It's not a simple switch that gets flipped to make these things. And I mean, I agree. I think if you're gonna be judgmental about something, at least give it the decency to wait until you actually experience it. That's my 2 cents. I'm not saying you have to love it, but at least try it out before you knock it. But that, and also, again, big thank you to you for putting all. I mean, you basically put the show together for this week, so
yep,
it was easy for us. We just showed up and hit stream.
I can't remember. I know you said it in the past, like, okay, we're talking Halo. Okay, go ahead, Pence. You just
go. You got it.
I
what are we
also
talking
am just grateful that you sent me the show notes ahead of time so I could look them over and start looking up some of these names and terms.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed with Skype's little subtext keeping up with the saying Helios names. Like,
Yeah.
Well, it is Microsoft, so there's probably some Halo fans.
Fair. I did not even think about that, but that's fair. That's fair. So as always, thank you for your time, and until next time, remember, with wisdom we conquer, stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. I'm going to change that to just hold on to your butts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching Green's reaction for it.
Just hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts. You made me take a personality
whatever.
test.
Mm-hmm.
That moment when he's starting to say things just so he can watch your camera.
If I re-download any Halo game in the series, which should I download to prep for Infinite?
Wicked, download the Master Chief Collection. It's on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, just download the Master Chief Collection.
That, and from a lore perspective, though, it would be Halo Wars 2 would almost be... But that's not a... I mean, it's not going to be a first-person shooter. Like, it won't be...
Well, that's strategy, isn't it? That's
it's an RTS.
Yeah.
Fun factoid.
Time strategy.
Yeah, fun factoid about Halo Wars 2 is Morla is actually a voice actor in Halo Wars 2.
Really?
She's the Hornet. The Hornet unit.
She's who?
The Hornet unit.
She also
did not hear Hornet at first, by the way.
Oh, yeah. That well, I don't know. We were actually at the E3 when they announced that. That was the E3 that we got to hang out with her at.
That was where you first met her.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I need to actually go through and play CE. I gave it like a college try back in college, but...
So here's the funny thing with CE is I went back and played it like I went back with Ben and played it, and he complained the entire time. Because he actually was like, this is actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, because he actually started playing Halo halfway through Halo 3, so he played Halo 3, which, I mean, Halo 3 is not a walk in the park, to be fair.
No.
Sure.
Especially on Legendary. It is definitely not a walk in the park. But like Halo 3, so he never played Halo CE or Halo 2, which I was like, we got to fix that immediately. Like, not even really CE, but you need to play Halo 2. So we went back and played Halo CE. I'm like, I honestly... That's a terrible game.
I'm always running out of ammo. Like,
well, it's not even that. Like, I never
had a gun.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was the fact is like everyone lauds on Halo for being so good at storytelling and all that. CE has next to no story in it. Like, it's literally land, shoot, go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like Halo 2 has story in it, but CE was literally, here's an excuse to shoot aliens, go.
Yeah.
So who you had mentioned the primary antagonist for Infinite, we kind of know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
do you think he's gonna?
It's
do you think they're gonna? Do you think that they're going to stay the primary antagonist, or if that's just going to be an arc of it?
That's actually one of the big questions that's out there.
I think that might be why they introduced Asharim and not Atriox.
So they probably want to keep Atriox in the Halo Wars lane for that. Well,
but also Atriox is such a bigger bad. Like, he's
right.
He's like above he's probably above Prophet level.
Well, the thing is that there, like I said, there are a lot of questions like the created. What are they going to do with that storyline? And 343 has already said that you will find that out as you play the game.
Sure.
It is. I hope they don't. I don't want to see them do stuff like kill everybody off screen. I'd rather. I mean, if you're going to do something like, for example, kill Osiris, right? Fireteam Osiris. What I would prefer happen is you at least have an arc where you're playing as them in game, and you have an ending like you do in Reach, where at least you can see them and these characters that there are a lot of people who care about, who like Fireteam Osiris and who like those characters. To try to see them. Actually, I probably should stop Audacity now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me do that.
Wait the folder.
Export as wave. Sorry.
No.
Sorry. That's just one of the things that I want to see. I hope we do have something other created. I hope they're just not brushed off. But Asharum is facing to be the main one. And actually, something I forgot to mention is one of the other things that Asharum mentions in the gameplay trailer is the Harbinger.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who the frick is the Harbinger?
Right.
And
who are they harbinging? That's what I want to know.
I would assume it would be Atriox.
You cut out a little there.
Oh, Jay. I would assume that it'd be Atriox. Because basically everything Asharum does is going to be pretty much focused around the Banished and Atriox. Like the Harbinger of the Banished. To me, that wouldn't be a huge leap.
Yeah, there could it be the Didact, because there's concept art of the Didact, and like, will the Didact be there? And I know plenty of people who really want the Didact back, because the Didact is actually Didact is actually he's a tragic character. It's like Shakespearean level tragedy,
right?
And,
I actually like the Didact. I like that storyline,
and it gets even better if you read like what actually like transpired with the Didact, and like, and then you look at what happened with the Isodidact, and you're like, so the Didact is always portrayed as like this big bad, and it's like, but the Isodidact isn't. And my argument has always been, it's like, because of the way that they imprint, like the goodness of the Isodidact wasn't like an unknown variable that wasn't in the Didact. The Didact actually has a tragic story, because he's lost basically because wasn't all his children killed by the humans?
Yep.
And even in the face of that, he tried to be honorable about things, like, and then when he was finally basically imprisoned by his wife, who by the way, who tricked him into the prison. He was it was intended to be a mediation.
It was supposed to,
and then the domain got effed.
Wow. Well, you have to remember, initially, most of the Forerunners wanted to totally destroy humanity, and he actually didn't.
Oh,
right.
He felt that he was, it was supposed to be a kind of act like a shepherd kind of a thing. Even though like all of his children were lost in the fight.
Wasn't that when he met with the Admiral's ships?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, and the thing is that when he was the Didact was imprisoned in a cryptum twice. The first time he was encrypted in a crater on Earth, the Juman. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to remember how to pronounce that. But he was imprisoned on Earth in there. But the thing is, with the cryptum, you were connected to the domain, which again is which was the list of all the Forerunner knowledge. And you were kind of in a rehabilitative state, I think might be the best way to put it.
You're such a jerk, Blue. God damn it. When you started saying the word that you were like, I don't even want to try to pronounce it, that was what flashed in my brain. And I was like, fucking A. Blue put in, he was in Jumanji until Robin Williams let him out.
But so anyway, like the first time he was essentially being rehabilitated or not meditative state, whatever you want to put it. The second time, this was after the didact was driven mad by the flood, and the flood deliberately captured him, tortured him, drove him mad, and then sent him back to sow discord amongst the Forerunners. So yes, but the Ordidact, his wife, essentially ambushed him on Requiem, put him in a cryptum with the idea that he would be able to connect to the domain, he'd be able to essentially heal. Mm-hmm. But the problem is the domain was and this is something the Gravemind told the librarian as she was waiting for the Halo ray to fire while she was on Earth. The firing of the Halo ray would affect the domain. And essentially it destroyed is probably, I don't know how accurate if it was destroyed, but it was definitely totally disconnected. So the Ordidact had nothing but his own madness to reflect on for millennia.
Yeah, he was basically forced into what should have been a research facility or like a library, but then it was put into an echo chamber. Right. And he could only focus on what was in his own head.
So essentially, instead of it being a time for meditation, it was a padded cell.
Yep.
It augmented his insanity instead of helping it.
Now, the other part of it is that the Forerunners were able to essentially reboot the domain at some point. Mm-hmm. And that's how... and then the remaining ones left the galaxy. And it was now the domain, I guess prior was like a very beautiful and light place. After the reboot, it was barren, but it still had the knowledge, at least from the way I can remember it being described in Halo Fractures. Excuse me. And that's where Cortana and the fragment of Cortana ended up.
Right. So here's a question. Mm-hmm. Wicked had asked which game would be better, but would it actually be better to read through some of the books to go through specifically the Forerunner trilogy before doing this game? Or because there's so much that like I don't even know how to prepare at this point.
That's one of the really rough things, and this is a challenge for 343 is how do you get people who are just joining it? I mean, what I would probably say is that 4 and 5 would be the 4 or 5 would be the two that you would probably really want to play. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to, you could watch all the cutscenes for Halo Wars 2 because that's really where the story is all is, and that would give you background on the Banished. Okay. That would be something to definitely try that. Oh, look, you read about the Didact and the Shield Worlds. Yeah, I mean, I would also say that keep an eye on YouTube channels for Halo Canon, Covenant Canon, Hidden Xperia. They do an excellent job at summarizing like the whole story thus far, and probably I would not be surprised if at some point they do a primer for Halo Infinite.
You mean like the everything you need to know about Destiny, but for Halo?
Yes, pretty much.
Except for instead of 45 minutes long, it's going to be 45 hours long.
And Wicked, yeah, that's always going to be the issue with Halo, because Halo is a single platform game. At least it has been. I mean, they're going to make a PC now, but for the most part, it's been a single platform game. It's not like Call of Duty. It's not like Destiny, where you have tons and tons of people who across different platforms. So that's always going to be the question. And frankly, the way you need to do it is it can be a simple story. It just needs to be, the story needs to be told well. The gameplay has to be solid. And when you're talking about Halo, in the end, it's going to be the multiplayer that will really cause people to grab. Frankly, people bashed Halo 4's multiplayer as too much like COD. Halo 5's multiplayer, I think, is actually really good. There's no doubt that it is a bit on the sweaty side in some cases.
Oh, especially now.
But,
having been around for 5 or 6 years.
But it's definitely, it's definitely fun to play. So if they're able to nail those things, they'll get people to play. One of the advantages before was when it was coming out, you didn't have to worry about anything Destiny related coming out. You didn't have to worry about some of the other games coming out. Now with stuff being delayed, now they do. And they've kind of doubled down on this being an Xbox Series X release game. So, that's always been the question: is how do you get people to play? And now it didn't help that Xbox shot themselves in the foot for a long period of time with the Xbox One, and then the Master Chief Collection debacle.
Sure.
That's its own.
I still, as from a programming standpoint, the fact that thing turned on when I put the disc in at the start, I was like, nope, I'm good. Like, I'm impressed that you got this far. Like, I just.
Well, I get
it. I get it. The frustration for the Master Chief. Yeah, it was 3 different consoles that they blended into one.
Well,
because it was the Xbox 360 and then the Xbox One, all on one. It was.
Well, the other part of it is they threw a brand new UI on it, and essentially they made 4 different types of net code.
Mm-hmm. Well, because they were trying to keep all as close to the original feel or whatever. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, I remember defending that, being like, I'm like, guys, the fact that this thing is even turning, like, the fact that I can navigate the menu is impressive to me. Like, I actually, and I was one of the lucky ones. Like, Ben and I played, we didn't have any problem playing Master Chief Collection when it first came out. Like, we didn't have any of the issues. But
the campaign part ran fine for me.
Yeah,
that's what that's what I got. Was a different thing. So
yeah, but to be fair, I got it for the campaign components. So.
Vuru, it's not really a virtual machine for the games. Every game is there. It's
it was a bitch and a half to download. I'll tell you that.
It's Master Chief Collection is not small.
It's a chunky game.
Mm-hmm. I believe it's at least as large as Halo 5 is, and Halo 5 is a little bit over 100 gig. Mm-hmm. Or pretty damn close. So,
Destiny is 100 gigs now too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's up there.
It's actually, so I think, larger than what Sony allowed them to. That was one of the big things that.
Well, because the way Sony does their updates and stuff, right?
Oh my god, it takes fucking forever every time. There's a goddamn. Oh, I hate it so much. That is one thing Xbox has done well. It's like every time they're like, we're gonna have a new update, and I'm like, fuck. It's gonna take an hour and a half It's going to
so
take
funny.
2 minutes for it to download. 2 minutes, and then an hour and a half for it to fucking copy.
The funny thing is like that's the benefit of having Microsoft do this stuff is because it's like, oh hey, look, it's a computer.
Well, I mean, I'm down here in my basement, and I have my Xbox and I have a PlayStation. So, like, in most cases, whether it's it's Halo or if it's Destiny, I have my Xbox set up so it'll update automatically. So in most cases, I don't have to wait. Now there are a few times that I have had to, but it is significantly like if I start both at the same time, the Xbox will be done. I'll be able to hop on and start playing, and I'll be playing for an hour before the PlayStation is done.
Yep.
Does the PlayStation, you guys auto download stuff?
No.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And there's not even, I don't even think there's a remote way to do it. The thing that I have just started doing is that because I have it on all the platforms, I'll start my download on PlayStation and go play on PC. I just bypass it altogether. Destiny never auto downloads for me ever.
Maybe because like the size or something. I don't know. That's interesting.
Maybe.
I mean,
I've
had to delete tons of games off of my PlayStation in order to fit
it. I might be mistaken on that, but I'm on the Destiny side. But either way, I do know that I've kicked it off on both at the same time. And like I said, I've been able to, within 30 minutes, I'm back on my Xbox playing, and PlayStation's still chugging away. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
PlayStation also has had some major server issues lately, but that's...
that's
not
anything new with PlayStation Network, though.
Yeah. I mean, Xbox has had its own issues from time to time.
That being said, when Xbox has its issues, it's fucking into the world.
Xbox makes its issues like a grand party. Everybody's there and angry. PlayStation, it's just like a disgruntled ant in the corner.
Yeah, and the major and at least like way back in when they first started off, the major difference was with Xbox multiplayer, but like Xbox Network, you had to pay to get on it. So they actually had security around it. So if someone actually cracked it and brought it down, it was like they actually cracked it and brought it down. Like it wasn't like, oh, we just disconnected a couple of things. That was, what was that, 2 or 3 years ago when was it Lizard Squad brought down like half the internet and the world lost shit for 2 days. Like that
happened right over. That happened on
Christmas.
On Christmas.
Christmas. Too. Yep. I remember that because people were pissed.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Right now, I just want games to be fun to play. I've gotten to the point where it's like the console thing is kind of the console fighting thing. I know every now and again people start making this big deal about PlayStation or Xbox or whatnot. It's like, get over it. Everyone has games that they want to play. Let me just play the games I want to play.
Well, and that's why I like where Xbox is kind of with their philosophy with like the Series X and the Game Pass, really, because like Game Pass Ultimate it's so nice because you get basically all the PC games and the Xbox games. And like any of the Xbox games going forward, pretty much you can play on your PC. Or you can play on the cloud that got kicked off Apple, which cracks me up watching that spat go back and forth. Like, oh my gosh.
I actually had signed up for Project X Cloud for Apple because that's what I have. I mean, we've had it for years,
then Apple, like, I guess, kicked it off their App Store, I think is what happened, and then they came back and they're like, well, and Microsoft's like, but you have it over here, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You know, You guys saw the thing about what is it? Fall Guys, the new indie game that just came out.
Mm-mm.
You haven't seen anything about it?
I haven't.
It's actually
I don't pay attention to most games, to be honest. I have like a few titles that I pay attention to.
It's free to play on PlayStation. I don't know if it is on Xbox or not, but it's a really cute, simple. It not quite as simple as Speedrunners, but has that same kind of feel. You basically get put into this game show with like 50 people. Like it's you and like 49 other people, and you have trials that you have to do, like racing, and it's.
So it's like a family friendly battle royale.
Yes, but instead of shooting at each other, you're racing across a map,
that's what I mean.
or
It's
you're
like,
like throwing each other off.
Oh, okay. So it's like
platforms.
an indie version of Mario Party.
Yeah, let me show you.
Whatever. What was that game called? Was it Mario Party? Is that what it was? That broke families apart and made friends kill each other.
I mean,
There's a lot of games that do that.
No, that was what was Fusion Core back in like old Xbox. Oh gosh, what was that fucking title?
Copy link.
Fusion Frenzy. Do you remember that game, Pins?
That sounds really familiar.
You want to talk about a game that made people want to kill each other?
It looks really cool though. I downloaded it earlier. I played one round. I got knocked out because I was terrible at running, apparently, even though it's just move the stick forward. It's fairly simple mechanics though.
I know Ben was telling me, what was the one that he wanted me to download? Golf with Friends.
That one's fun. I've watched some Let's Plays of that. That one is Mr. Fruit used to do those, and so did the Rooster Teeth guys.
Black Flag.
What the fuck are you doing, Black Flag? Why?
Why?
7 hours worth of rating?
You going for a ring?
Was it just one raid, or did you do multiple?
God. I hope it was more than one, because that's like some of those raids, that's longer than the...
I mean, if it was just one raid, go to bed.
Oh,
three raids.
Okay,
That's
a little bit more.
Okay.
My clan leader's a sadist.
Sounds like it.
Holy raisins with that much time investment is a panty raid. Only you, Wicked. Only you.
I don't even know what a panty raid is. I'm gonna go to bed.
Green's like, and on that note, I'm gone.
Yep.
All right, stream. You guys have a great night. Thank you guys for coming out and hanging out with us. Wicked's oof.
Uh-huh.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.